Welcome back, Routine Underground. You already know what it is. It's Corey J.
Kay Stizzy.
And Jamie Two Braids.
We got a special guest with us today. Introduce yourself, man. Where you from? What name, age, where you from, that sort of stuff.
Yes, sir. I'm Ari Nazem. I'm from the Bay Area, California, living in Los Angeles now, and I'm 24 years old. Came out here to visit my boy, Kaizek.
We met through college. We met through Stanford. And yeah, if you want to explain your story and who you are, wherever you want to begin, I guess, yeah, your story.
For sure. Yeah, I can give a brief overview, then we can.
So just like, what was it like growing up, birth? So you always grew up in the States, right?
Where was you born? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I was actually born in Stanford Hospital.
Stanford Hospital?
Yeah, I was born in Stanford Hospital.
So you've been there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'm from there. My parents came over from Iran, right before the revolution, and then they grew up from their teens in the Bay. And then a lot of my family members also came from Iran to the Bay, so had like a strong Persian community in that area. My dad's family was like about an hour away, and then my mom's family was like 5 minutes away by car, so they were always at the house. Something I definitely connect with in Cherokee culture, just having everyone around, having the aunties around and the little kids around, everyone there. That was very much the situation I grew up with at home. You know, of course, went to school. Like I went to a Catholic school for the first few years, but at home, you know, we were speaking Persian. Some people call it Farsi, but Persian's the way to say it. Persian's like, Farsi is like Espanol. It's like the name for the language in the language, whereas Persian would be like Spanish or German or something. So we spoke that at home, you know, ate a lot of Persian food. And parents were in the tech industry down there. And my mom was always a very curious kid, always was reading, always really wanted to understand more about the world, and didn't really have a chance when she was in Iran. But when she came to the Bay, she had some more means to be able to give that experience to me and my sister. I have an older sister who's 26, almost 27. And she took us traveling around the world. So from when I was about 7 to when I was 15, we went to about 100 countries. So we were in school the majority of the time. Sometimes she would take us out of school if there was a time that we needed to go to a certain trip that conflicted with school. But she would always say, like, you know, I'm your number one teacher. School is additional or supplementary or social, but the real world is your teacher. So
interesting, actually, concept of education in academia versus real world knowledge of cultures. It's like reading about a culture in a book, like you said about Cherokee. You hear about Cherokee, and then to come to Cherokee and see it in real life, and full body experience. Yeah, that's something we can probably talk about later. Is a lot of my work now is about mapping kind of the human experience and trying to have us live in the right way with it. You know, that's something we talk about, or you guys talk about a lot in Cherokee, is the right way. And I would say one of the reasons I resonate so much with this place and with you guys is that's also kind of my question that I'm asking myself is, how do we live the right way? And I'm trying to synthesize a new answer to that I guess, a new answer to that takes into account what we've learned from modernity and what we're learning from different cultures, trying to kind of put an answer together of saying, okay, what's the synthesis of all human knowledge at this time for the right way? How do we understand all the things that different human cultures across the earth are aware of right now and also throughout time? And the travels, I think, is what really inspired that, because going to all these places when I was a kid, you know, going to 14 countries in Africa, seeing how people are living there, tribal people there, as well as the huge cities, you know, going to China. I took Mandarin in school, so I went to China a few times with school and then also with my family, and seeing just totally different civilization out there, totally different history, totally different wisdom, tradition. A lot of, been to pretty much all the major sites of the religion. So like I've been to Mecca and done the Hajj, not on the time of the Hajj. We went at a different time, but there with all the people, you know, I've been to the Vatican and Jerusalem and pretty much any landmark you can think of in the world. I've been there. Been to Antarctica. So, real traveler, explorer in a way.
Yeah, I was with my mom, so I wouldn't say like I was like, you know, wearing the hat, like going out there braving the wilderness myself, like Nat Geo style. But I was more of like a, I guess, scholarly and experiential experience. And
what was the reason behind all the travel?
Yeah, I think it was a dream my mom had for herself that she wanted to share with us. Like that's I think what she wanted to do when she was younger is like have that experience.
So they were mainly just like vacation trips, stuff like that. Is that what you're?
No, it was kind of her own style.
Oh,
It was her own style. So like when we'd show up to a place, we'd kind of have to give her a briefing on what was going on in that place. So like let's say we land in Malaysia, right? It'd be like, okay, how does the government work? I don't actually remember exactly what it is for Malaysia, but for example, it would be like, okay, it's a constitutional monarchy. Okay, what does constitutional monarchy mean? Well, it means there's a king and then there's a parliament and they're in this balance and da-da-da, but the king's actually kind of symbolic. It's really about the Congress. You have to kind of explain that. And by explaining that, you kind of have to know what other types of government are too. Right. So you understand where it fits into the larger scope of that. And
so your mom would make you learn that about the country you guys were traveling to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make us understand that. Make us understand, okay, what's the major religion practice in this country? You know, what are the major imports and exports? Like, what is their kind of economy center around? What are their national holidays and why are those special days for them? Who are their geographical neighbors, and are they allies with them? Or are they enemies with them? Why are they enemies if so? Why are they allies if so? You know, what's the language? What language groups is it related to? That sort of thing. How do you say hi? How do you say thank you? How do you say goodbye? What's the Gini inequality index? What's the human development index? What's the GDP per capita and purchase power parity? You know, basically like just a full rundown of what's going on in this country. And we'd have to say that every time we'd land. So, you know, we'd be on the plane like reading CIA World Fact Book and, you know, various guides. You know, CIA World Fact Book's a good one.
And was that her way of teaching you guys like knowledge about the world?
Yeah, I would say so. She kind of considered it like homeschooling. She kind of considered herself like our main teacher and sent us to school to understand what the culture was doing here, or like to understand the social environment that we were from, but not necessarily to become like that wasn't necessarily what she saw as being a full level of education. She thought education needed to include more than that, needed to include actual experiences in the world and understanding other cultures firsthand. So, yeah.
Okay.
And so wow. Anyways, it reminds me a lot of Jason though. Actually, it's a Shawnee Reed. He spent a lot of time with us too. I wish you could have met him. You would have him and my granddad as well. Like you guys would have definitely hit it off very well. But Jason traveled a lot.
Yeah, he's
Jamie grew up with Jason.
Well-versed traveler.
Yeah,
originally
he's got a lot of. I wish we were doing this whenever he was still here, because God, he would had some stories to tell us.
Yeah.
This is what we learned from him just whenever he was here, and when he got back, we moved back finally. He had just some crazy stories, man.
He was
some stuff you would not believe.
He was that true. We'll get into this later, but there's a diagram that he developed. It's like we'll get into it later. But one of the personality traits on that graph is the warrior, and it just immediately thinks like I think of Jason.
Yeah,
because like Jason was in the military and he was a QRF special forces
quick reaction
force.
Wow.
That should have been on top of my tongue since I've been in the military. But anyways, he was QRF for a long time, and the stories that he had doing that, and then also doing a somewhat I guess it was mercenary work. We never got a clear example or clear like. You know, it's kind of vague around the bush, but as far as what I could understand after coming out of the military, he was doing mercenary work. Took a couple bullets and stuff and just ate them, kept trucking through, and I was just like, wow, okay. But
bullet holes and everything.
He's been to, he made it to every country, didn't he?
Yeah, I think.
He was short.
How many are there?
Yeah, I think UN usually recognizes like 190.
I think he was short a couple.
He's short like 3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah,
but he had been to every single one of them, and that's
crazy.
The next thing so that like over time, me and Kazakh had the chance to go first in our family to other countries, and I mean aside from like the generic ones like Mexico, Canada,
right?
But ever since then, I feel like that's what drove me and Kazakh and Jamie as well to want to see these other places. Yeah, you know, because just the knowledge that he had based around that and the experiences that he had out there as well.
Right. So still haven't got the chance to leave the country.
It's coming though.
It's coming.
With time. I mean, I don't count Canada as one, to be completely honest.
Right.
I mean, the Bahamas was cool, but that was like a super touristy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, to get the real experience to be out on your own and you don't have anything to really fall back on, I feel like is a real experience as far as being out the country.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, but yeah, that's initially what come to mind and a goal that I would have.
So it seems to me like you have a duality of culturally, like cultural knowledge, but also you never like if you want to speak about like your tech side of things and what you've done.
Yeah.
Out your time out in California with the companies.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is something I was kind of mentioning to you guys the other day. Coming here, seeing stickball, it seems to me like it provides a lot of what I would call like esteem. Like you win respect, you win honor within the community. You know, potentially even the girls take notice of you because of your performance in stickball. The elders might take notice of you, say, "Oh, maybe there's something interesting going on with that guy." You know.
And just to butt in real quick, Ari just experienced Stickball Week with the fair and everything else going on here. Speaking to our grandmother, she recognizes it as like the Zali Festival in a sense.
Yeah.
Indigenous Peoples Day or Columbus Day. Instead of celebrating those, we just call it. She would like to call it Zali Day. That makes sense to me. I recognize that. I like that as well. We explained to you who Zali was, historical figure, having a lot to do with Cherokees' background. But he was able to experience that and watch that from almost the beginning to the end. But he was here for the very end and was able to walk out with us and see the games firsthand. And
to really feel the energy.
Yeah.
To feel the energy. And
there's nothing like it, really.
Yeah.
From the kids to the elders, it's all incorporated.
There's nothing like it. That's why when we were at a dinner last night, we were at the casino and the sports games were playing. I was like, it's weird watching these games right now because it's the sport is like just about the sport. You know, like football, it's just about football. They're talking about like rushing yards and like the Broncos, whatever. Whereas like to me, stickball seemed like it was just an expression of life, or it was very intertwined with life. Like the women of the men are there, like cheering them on. Like the kids are there. The whole community is there witnessing and watching it. Like these are people you actually know, you have relationships with. And the scores that are being settled on the field are like scores that happen in daily life. Like, you know, people having a girlfriend that, you know, becomes a girlfriend to someone else or whatever. Like that's coming onto the field.
Settling disputes and whatnot.
Right.
Across the board.
It's recognized as part of the game, part of the function of the game, as opposed to like, you know, in the modern world, the thing that kind of defines the modern world is specialization, or basically like breaking things up so that they can be honed on their own, right? Like you learn math in its own class, and then you learn, you know, science in its own class, then you learn writing in its own class. Back in the day, it was never like that. All those things were just part of life. You know, you might need to know a little bit of math to do something you're trying to do, but it's all about that thing. And that holistic thing incorporates different disciplines. But, you know, basket weaving isn't separate from stickball. It's all part of life. It's all playing its purpose.
Right.
Part of the culture.
Part of the culture.
Yeah.
That's something that touched me a lot.
I mean,
seeing the integration.
Yeah, they it's got its nickname. They call it Little Brother of War. I mean, and that's in a certain aspect of it. It keeps you from like saying if you do have a dispute, instead of just going out there and fighting somebody on the street, if you're brave enough to come out there and play, then you could handle it out there if you want to. I mean, nobody is saying it's like I don't condone it, you know, but if you do, that's where you could settle it if they play.
Right. And it was an interesting dynamic. Like you have the police force watching the games, watching this stuff happening.
Yeah.
And especially in the U.S., there's not really a place you can do that. I feel like if you were to do that at Stanford or like any city, it's like people are looking at you like crazy. Like what the fuck is happening? Yeah.
Go to jail.
And it's just like that that issue that we talked about earlier, where that rumor or like where they try to scare, so to speak, the players into playing the right way. I mean, traditionally, right, there was no like, I don't want to say right way. There was just that morality, right? Like, I'm not going to go purposely out there and break your neck. You know what I'm saying? But like at the same time, I'm not going to show you any mercy. You go up in the air, you're coming down, you know, treat everybody out there the same. You know, it doesn't matter. Like in my mind, it doesn't matter if you're big, small, little, whatever. If you're trying to grab somebody from my team or you're just around, like, you know, and I get a hold of you, you're going up in the air. If I can lift you, you're going up in the air. I mean, there's evidence of that. Like, it doesn't matter how big. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I feel like they shouldn't be able to put like a stipulation on it. As long as I'm not trying to kill somebody, not trying to hurt them, club them in with a stick. You've never seen me use a stick, ever. I mean, I don't want to sound like contradicting him, but you just never see me use one, right? I've never even got to the point to where I wanted to start anything with someone on that field. You know, like, you hit me, good, it's cool, whatever. I get up, keep playing, whatever. I'm going to get you back, but I don't even hold that animosity. If I was holding that animosity, I'd do it outside of the field, you know, but you'd never see me do anything like that outside of the field unless it's to protect my own. But it was crazy how they were trying to scare us and say that if you get in a fight out there, whatever, try to settle that dispute, we're going to arrest you. But then upon speaking to one of the officers that I'm real good friends with, was like, as long as you're not impaling someone with a broken stick, I mean, I'm not going out there. And I was like, okay, cool, makes sense. And he was joking around about how, what do I look like, police officer running out there with 20 men fucking sticks? Like, yeah, I've become a part of the game and I'm not doing that. So, but I feel like it's a good outlet for our community as well. Like,
yeah,
I mean, just to be able to handle something in, for lack of a better term, a safe way, a safer and healthier way, then I'll see you at Food Line and we can scrap it out in the parking lot. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There is a bit of a stoppage moment where, like, you only really go so far in theory, and then that's it. Right. There's not really, like, you know, I don't want to say there is like a stoppage. That's why I say, like, in theory, like, moral sense, you like, okay, that's enough. We settled it. Respect out of that. Everybody that goes out there, for the most part, shakes hands on the way in or shakes hands on the way out, and that's just it. And I like that about that.
You'll always have them couple of people that are just constantly going to hold a grudge, and that's just how they are. I mean, you can't help them people. I mean, it kind of gives the meaning of the game a bad name for people like that. You know, like I said, like he was just saying, it does settle a lot of stuff, and historically, it was meant to settle like disputes, wars, and stuff like that. That's why they call it Little Brother War. It was there in place. You send your guys out, we send our guys out. We win. There's, you know, that's how you settle disputes back in the day, within, like, I guess, certain communities or other, you know, tribes.
It's like the last step to war.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting to me about this is something that I've thought a lot about, and I'm trying to advocate more for and think of ways to integrate it into the broader culture. Seems to me that since the indigenous time, and definitely since the monotheist time, so we can talk about this later in the podcast, or I can give a brief overview of it now, but in my understanding of history, or of the evolution of human culture, seems that there have been basically 5 big moments. Mm-hmm. There's the original kind of way of living, which is the indigenous way of living. And that, to me, represents the last time we had a kind of a fully holistic, light is recognized, dark is recognized, masculine is recognized, feminine is recognized. They're all kind of put together in harmony. And all of these things are kind of in their places. And they're kind of harmonized together. Darkness is seen as a part of life. We're engaging it with it in a healthy way. Light is seen as a part of life. We're doing fun things. We're having a good time. We're being cheerful. We're cultivating that specifically. But all these things are a part of life. And it's because when you're living, at least as I understand it, when you're living close to nature, it's dark half the day, right? It's dark half the year, right? Like, you can't escape the darkness inherent to existence. You can't, because you're living in nature. So you have to, your physical body has to adapt to the times in which it's darker, the times in which it's colder, then it adjusts again for spring and summer. So built into not only your mind, but into your body's intelligence is the understanding that we cycle through light and dark, we cycle through times of abundance, times of scarcity, and all of these times have something sacred about them, or they all have value, and they all provide different things. When you start living away from nature, though, and you start living with, agriculture, and start doing heavy agriculture, not the sort of agriculture it seems like the Cherokee were doing, from what I understand, where you're doing heavy agriculture, where you have a bunch of livestock, right? And you have tons of crops that you're trying to have a surplus, right? So you're working the ground more than it wants to give. You're putting the plows on the animals so that you can do even more work. Now you have to start whipping the animals. When you start whipping the animals, you have to have a different understanding in your head, different story, right, of who a human being is and who an animal is.
Okay.
Right? Because when you start whipping the animal, it's like, I'm trying to have it do something it doesn't want to do, but I want it to do. Man is better than nature. Man has power over nature, right? And the mythologies of those peoples are always about God making, or the gods making earth for people to use it for their wishes completely. And so you start to push out of consciousness our connection to animals. We stop looking at ourselves as having characteristics that are animalistic, or characteristics that are similar to the natural world. We started identifying ourselves based on how different we were, or some people, I should say, not the Cherokee, but some people started to focus on the aspects of humanity that are very different from nature, and start to say, well, we're the ones who talk, and we're the ones who write, and we're the ones who do all this other stuff,
Right.
and we're the ones who can control our emotions and all these other human traits. Anyways, all of this is to say, over the past couple thousand years, we've been pushing the darker aspects of ourselves and the more primal aspects of ourselves, more animal aspects of ourselves, which we have as part of us, into the shadow. It's not like we've changed our biology. They're still here. We're the same human beings, but we've created stories. The stories that are dominant in our culture are about progress and going into the light and nothing ever decaying or falling apart. Just, like modernity is all about making better and better and better technology. Next year is going to be better than this year.
Like the iPhone.
The iPhone, right?
Yeah.
The next big thing is here, It's, and these stories, these are kind of the stories a lot of people are living on now. And the idea is, well, if anything's wrong with life, we got to fix that and make it more efficient and have it go away with new technology or new medicines or whatever it is. Darkness doesn't have a place here. If someone's angry, give them a pill. That's something wrong with them, right? If someone's having XYZ problem, they're broken. There's something wrong with them, right? If someone's screaming, there's something wrong with them. You need to teach them decorum. You need to teach them how to sit still, whatever it is. We see this in our school system. We see this just in larger society out in America and the rest of the world.
Like indoor voices, and I see what you mean.
Do you see what I mean? And it's kind of making us more prim and proper, over time. And something I was talking, or one of the things I'm passionate about, is how do we reintegrate the darkness in a healthy way? How do we reintegrate the lower, by lower I don't mean bad, lower I just mean earlier aspects of human nature or animal nature that we have, that we've forgotten about, because they still live within us. And if we don't have some sort of a healthy outlet to do something with them, they're going to come out when we don't want them to, and no one's going to know how to deal with it. And it seems to me that stickball is a way in which these more primal feelings and desires and emotions and kind of the things in life that are hard, like pain and like going into conflict or doing something that you might be afraid of doing for a cause, for something that's worth it, for something that's sacred, for Wolftown or for whatever community you're representing. It seems to me that it's a way for the men and the women and the children and the community as a whole to experience in a celebratory way, the primal aspects of life, the darker aspects of life. Do it, get it over with, keep going.
If you would mention like the whole, I guess, the baby and the mom and the hearing things.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Kanai the other day, but one of the first things you've seen when you came to Cherokee is the most like, no fucking pictures, and then like just the screaming, the raw, I guess, energy that we all have within us. But yeah, I guess if you would want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, so human beings are different from other animals in our basically ability to be affected by our environments. They call it plasticity. right? The ability to be plastic, to change. So like a cow's born somewhere, it comes out kind of like fully baked. Like the difference between one cow and another cow, like maybe one's a little sleepier, one's a little more energetic or something like that, but it's not going to be anything crazy different between two cows. Whereas two humans, you can have Gandhi, you can have Hitler from the same biological organism. Depending on their mindset, depending how they were raised, they can become two completely different people, two completely different things. That's one of the reasons, is because we come out earlier than other mammals, because our heads are so big, because our brains are so big, that we have to exit the mother earlier than we would for a mammal of our size. A mammal of our size, I think, should be coming out around like 12 months. But we have to come out around 9 months because we have such a big head, because we have all of these huge brains. Right. And so the mothers that were waiting to give birth didn't make it. The mothers who were given birth earlier come out. So childhood is kind of like the fourth trimester in a way. And humans stay very malleable up until around 25. The biggest point of plasticity is between 0 and 3. Then it's like 3 to 7, then like 7 to 13, then like 13 to 25, when the nervous system stops actively developing. That's why babies sleep a lot, is because the nervous system is just like kind of like crystallizing over time, and they need a lot of time for that to happen. Kids need to eat a bunch, and they don't get fat, unless they're eating a ton, but it's because the nervous system needs so much to build it, to grow it. So the things that happen in a human being's childhood, more so than almost any other animal, are baked into them, because the brownies are still wet when these new ingredients are being added. You can almost think of like another animal as like, you have a pan of brownies, it just came out of the oven, you accidentally knock over some salt, it goes on the brownies. Like you can kind of like wipe it off. Maybe it'll be a little salty, but like the brownie was cooked. It wasn't really receptive to new ingredients. Whereas like a human is in the batter state for like way longer. And the brownie is cooked at like 25. And the brownie is like 100% receptive at the very early ages. So whatever you're knocking in there, you can't really get it out without a lot of work. If the salt spills in there, there's going to be some salty brownies, right? That's what makes humans adaptable to every single environment on planet Earth. You have the Inuit up in the Arctic, right? You have people down in the jungles. You have people in deserts. You have people in every single environment on this planet. The human being has been able to live there and be home there. No other animal really of our level of complexity can do that. Like ants and scorpions and stuff can do that because they're very simple. But an animal of our level of complexity, it's hard to do. But we are malleable. So because of that, the stuff that's in our environment when we're younger really shapes our personality as we grow up. And in Western culture, when people are experiencing negative emotions, or what could be considered negative emotions, screaming, crying, big outbursts, etc., usually, at least in the culture I was kind of raised in, not the Persian culture, well, also in the Persian culture, but just modern culture, I should say, in general, these emotions are usually made bad. It's like, okay, someone's screaming, like something's wrong, right? Someone's crying, like something bad happened, right? There's intensity, there's conflict, men are clashing with each other. This has to be something wrong, something bad. So when you're a kid, you're not hearing this stuff or seeing this stuff much. And when you are, it's getting a label on top of it, which is minimize this. Like, don't do this. Don't have this, right? This
don't yell. Don't
yell.
Wrestle, don't horseplay.
Right? Like when I was a kid and we would wrestle and stuff, the teachers would come out and be like, oh my God, like be kind to each other, be nice to each other. Like, why are you fighting? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. That would be all fine and good if human beings didn't actually have those things inside of themselves to an irreducible amount. Shit is going to go wrong in our lives. Relationships are going to be difficult. We are going to experience frustration and setback. We are going to, at some point, experience the decaying and the pain of the decaying of our physical bodies and our eventual looming mortal death. There are things in this life that are dark and that are scary that we are never going to be able to edit out of the human experience, right? What do you do with those emotions? What do you do with those feelings? What do you do when there's energy in the body that needs to be moved, but you're told that any sort of screaming or any sort of crying, any sort of emotional release, any sort of physical pain inflicted on you is damage, is harm to the body, as opposed to a potential medicine, right? This is what the Western culture, modern culture believes. So this is why you get a lot of neurosis and a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression, because people have all these emotions trapped up inside, but they can't express them because they're afraid of that. And so it just bottles up and it starts weighing on them and eating them up, and their body starts getting sick. Why does the body get sick? Well, it's because the nervous system is never in a calm state. The body heals itself when you're in a calm state. When the body isn't focused on threats, the body can heal itself. When there's threats, it's dumping adrenaline and keeping you alert so that you can deal with the threat. A lot of these people are stuck in a constant threat state. So the body never heals. Gunk builds up in the body, right? Things, the copying of DNA goes wrong, or toxins come into the body, can't get cleared out. People start getting sick. It looks like all these other diseases. We call it all these other diseases, but it's coming from the body not being able to be relaxed enough and safe enough to actually heal itself. So we have a lot more problems in our society because of that. And the point I was making to Kaisik yesterday was I saw your cousin with the women holding her son and cheering on the men. And she was screaming, like loud, like full volume, as hard as she could scream, right? And what she's screaming at are two different teams of men coming into like actual physical contact with each other, full force, no pads, bare feet, like actually contacting each other. Yeah, it is the little brother of war. And this child who has, right, completely open nervous system, taking in all this information, trying to understand what's normal, what's not normal, what's good, what's bad. That's what the kid is trying to understand, right? What is healthy, what's unhealthy, what should I do, what should I not do, who are my people, who are not my people. These sorts of questions are going on in the kid at a deep level. And your mother is holding you, watching this. You're safe. You're taken care of. You're with your family. You're with your team. You're with everybody. You're in a safe place. Your mother is holding you. She's taking care of you, right? You're with mama, which is what a kid wants to be with the mother. And she is excited and activated and is screaming at this thing. What I interpreted at is this kid is getting into their head. It is okay to yell. It is okay to have conflict. It is okay to do these hard things or for people to go into pain. When men are fighting, my mother is excited, is happy, is joyous about this. This isn't something to be afraid of, right? I'm safe with her. My family's here. It's all good. Whereas a lot of people, when they're kids, when it happens, you might be saying, it might be away from the community. It might be in a bad situation. And then the idea is that I don't want to be in that situation again. That sucked. When someone screams, that's like, triggering me in the wrong way. Whereas this kid is seeing, oh, okay, there's a role for healthy violence in our lives. There's role for high expressive states in our lives. There's roles for all these things are just getting coded into the child. And I think when that child is dealing with something difficult in the future, and something like screaming or something like conflict, healthy conflict, something like ceremony, something like maybe something even like scarification or tattooing or things that inflict pain on the body for therapeutic purposes, he's probably not going to blink about those things and have access to those medicines right away. And there's a lot of people who I think could benefit from that, but it's already being done here. Those medicines are already ingrained in the kid from childhood.
And he made an excellent point last night. We were talking. He mentioned, as Onyx is hearing, like, Wyohe, go Wyohe. As a child, he's hearing, like, this is my people. This is my community. And it's something you're born into. And making that distinction. So, like, outside of Cherokee, when people move to cities, you have no connection to the land nor the people. It's just, like, buildings. And you just live there, right? But for us, where we've been here prior to European contact, we are here. Like, this is our land. It's just like Europeans came over and drew a border around us. From the 8 states we were occupying, to crunching down, draw a line, keep them there. They'll do their own things. If that made any sense.
No. The entirety of it made sense, and it makes me like I've told you before. I wish we were always kind of intertwined and deeper into like stickball growing up, right? Because it wasn't until fairly recently that we really dove head first into it. So like to see that though, I mean, I definitely understand it, and I envy it in a way as far as us not retaining that, right? Because we had to figure this out on our own. I think it's fair to say that me, Kazi, and Jamie, and not excluding you in a way, but we definitely had it rough growing up. No, I don't want to say rough. There's just like, everybody's had it some sort of way growing up, right? And then like seeing that and how, I guess hindsight's always a beautiful thing, right? You always like think, well, I wish this, and this. But it's like seeing that in a more healthier way is like, wow, And then, I don't know. That's just, it makes sense to me on so many levels.
Yeah.
And it just like, there's no other way to even go about explaining or talking about it because it already makes so much sense. It's the way it is. I mean, but that's like my second time hearing it, right?
Right.
So, I don't know. That's insane though, I think. As far as how much a kid would soak up like a sponge, right?
Right.
And that there is an actual healthy outlet to see those types of things and then to be okay with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body to me seems, well, I could zoom out even further. Seems to me that if you were to, in a very quick, short way, try and explain what the universe is, the whole thing, I would say it's the same pattern on different scales, right? We were talking about this the other day, how it seems like every layer of the universe is made out of the same fundamental pattern. Like an atom looks like a solar system. Those are two radically different scales, but they both have a center, which is positive, being orbited by something with a different charge. I mean, everything in this room is made out of atoms. Atoms, the center of an atom is the nucleus is a proton and some amount of protons and a neutron. Neutron is neutral, it has no charge. Proton is a positive charge. Electron has a negative charge. So every atom is just positive, negative, playing with itself, right? Over and over and over again. Those things coalesce up into molecules. Then molecules have different bonding points, and basically you could think of as positive, negative charges. Those things combine up and up and up and up and up all the way. It's fractal. The pattern of one layer is the same as the pattern of another layer, just in a different form. And that's true, in my experience, from the body to the mind. The body and the mind are symmetric, meaning the body has this wholeness to it, but this wholeness is actually also made up of parts, which are these organs. And these organs each have their function to keep the body going. Same thing with the mind. The mind actually has different archetypes, its own organs of understanding what's what. And we have these different, basically, parts of the mind, parts of the psyche that do different things. And a kid growing up with physical contact, knowing that there's some things that I have to do that are going to hurt my body, but are honorable, are good, are needed from me. That's going to translate to that person's psyche when they need to do something difficult mentally, right? They are going to have already experienced that in the body. That, okay, there's something that physically hurt, but I did it and something good happened, right? Or there was something that needed to be fought for and I was scared of doing it, but I showed up, I did it, my body is alive on the other side. It also trains the mind to be able to take risks, whether that's starting a new business, whether that's starting a podcast, whether that's having a difficult conversation with someone. The nervous system is already primed for difficulty, for hardship, for conflict. And that's one of the things that I've seen growing up, and I think we saw a lot at Stanford, is a lot of people are not inside of their bodies, or they haven't had many experiences in the body, or the body isn't a really active part of their daily experience, and their bodies are soft. So their minds become soft, right?
Yeah, nail on the head right there.
Because they haven't been able to, or they haven't had to endure hardship. It's pretty deep.
Yeah, see, to me, it makes too much sense to where like I can't even like go about discussing. It's like,
damn. I haven't really said much. I was sitting here, so I was like wrapping my brain around it. I was like,
bro, it's like almost like I feel like I just went to the dispensary, bro, and it's just like
damn. For Ari to connect these dots from across cultures to come here and see it and connect it, it's crazy to hear it.
That's why I think it's important though that we need to start making these journeys, right, and having the same insight, right? Because when did you realize that you had this? When did it become apparent that you're learning all these different things and all these different things really connect? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it went into a certain extent that I realized that, like, I don't know, like, that I realized that I was upset and I was angry about something growing up.
Right.
Because I was always fighting in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like from closet members, I was like going home for 5 days at a time every other week. 3 days at a time, OSS, like just for fighting all the fucking time.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I'm curious about how you made the connection like that.
But it wasn't until I got to Raven Gap boarding school that I realized that, though, that like, okay, I'm fighting these kids and I don't even really be mad at them. Half the time I'd be trying to look for an excuse to fight.
It's like internal conflict.
Right.
To, you know, push
release
out
that energy.
Release the energy, right? Because basketball wasn't doing it. I didn't play football because all these dudes were D1 prospects. And, you know, at the time, I'm a little guy. You got me. Yeah, I ain't dumb. You know what I'm saying? But then it's like, there was a time that fear also locked in. And then at some point I realized that, you know, can't be scared and just to hit everything head on, but in a healthy way to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
Like also being smart about it, but at the same time, you can't be scared of everything. There's some things that you can do and get through. It's just getting past the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that you are legitimately supposed to be scared of because it's like, nah, bro, you're not making it through that.
Right.
So,
but the line might be farther than you'd think.
Right.
The distinction between being able to discern which is which, a lot of people don't have. They just say anything that's physically painful is bad.
Right.
As opposed to saying, well,
I can make it through this.
Right. There's a certain amount of the poison that's actually medicine, and there's a certain amount of the dosage that it actually becomes poisonous.
Yeah.
But if you don't take a little bit of it, you're never going to get the benefit.
Too much of anything's bad. So that's how I hear it.
It goes back to like when we were just talking about Jason. I think he liked that. I don't think he felt pain. I think. Yeah.
So Jason, just to give you more insight on Jason, he was on the spectrum as well. But he was really good at what he did. He taught math at the college up there, but he didn't process a lot of the emotions the same.
Yeah.
So during the QRF moments where he was deployed, they were fighting children a lot of time. And he didn't process it the same.
He was fighting children?
Like where he was deployed at and whatnot. I mean, they drop in to help
soldiers.
Child soldiers. So he'd drop in to, you know, a convoy that's under attack, and lo and behold, this 9-year-old over there shooting at him. And he's like,
but you need those people in civilizations to, I guess, conquer or, I guess, overtake.
Right. You mean to like you need people like him and what he did to keep things held together? Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not saying that like he didn't like kids or anything. Like he come here and you never think that he
took care of Spud and Aya and Milo.
Yep.
For some time.
Mm-hmm.
But they lived with Jason.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, you know, you never once would that cross your mind, but it's like he didn't process it because at the moment you're in danger, right?
Yeah.
You got to go and you got to assault through that.
Totally.
Whereas some dudes in his unit, when they would drop in, they would crack under that pressure because they had children as well.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, it sucks, but at the end of the day, they don't know any better.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And I guess, like, not in a more literal sense if it sounds bad, but I mean, you just kind of have to have an open mind with it. But if I was more or less likely to be found in the same situation, to where it's me and my sons, and then we're fighting this foreign enemy, at the very least, I would want them to know how to fight. Like if it comes down to it, and we all got to fight, and it's me and my kids, like, what else am I gonna do? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Their best chance of survival is to know how to fight.
Yes.
So I mean, like, it sucks, but that's just the reality that some other people live in, and we don't really understand.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just to get that little snippet out the way. But you know,
yeah, it's the really interesting thing about human beings, to me, or I guess in general, as compared to some other animals, is that we can remake ourselves given the situation. So the point, I'm going to take a quick detour and come to this point, but I'll start with the final destination, which is that part of, I think, healing, or part of what I found to be a helpful way to live life is to like have competency in the basics that are appropriate for the situations that could arise, but not getting fixated on them when I change environments. So like there are some environments where I think violence is the correct response to violence, right? Like if you're like when you were talking yesterday, it's like, okay, you're in a community where you're going to see these people over and over and over again, right? If someone's picking on you or coming after you, they're going to continue to do that because you're seeing them constantly. If you don't set a boundary and let them know that you're not going to take it and you're not going to meet them there and that you're not going to put up with that, they're just going to keep going. Right. In that scenario where you're living in a place for a long time with those people, I think that's the correct strategy, right? It's actually better for both parties because then there's no power imbalance there where they start thinking they're someone that they're not and you're hiding yourself and you're getting shady and you're going to come around the back and do something. It's actually better to just say, no, I'm not going to put up with that. Let's settle this and then we can go to our respective places and not step on each other's toes. But if I'm in a city and someone calls me a name and I've never met them before and I'm never going to see them again, I probably wouldn't do anything in that case.
Yeah.
Because that it's not going to happen again. It might just be something for me internally to be like, no one's going to talk to me that way. But the cost benefit is a little skewed in that regard. Anyways, I guess the idea is that in different environments, at different times, I think as humans, we need to have, or as people trying to live the right way, we need to know how to be violent. We need to know how to be violent because if that actually happens, something needs to happen about it, right? If someone we love is getting hurt or injured, I think it's our job to do something about that and step in and try and help and not always rely on some other authority. Like I completely agree with that mindset, right? That's something that's a layer of our being that we need to have online. And I think outside of Cherokee, I don't see it online that much in people, and it can sometimes cause more problems because people are trying to beat around the bush and never get to the thing. So that's one thing that I think you guys have figured out that I admire a lot.
What I've noticed here, there's stories about people, but not utilizing the police to solve internal problems. Because I feel like anywhere else, like you call the police, they come here and they handle it. An outside force, right?
Right.
But here, I feel like a lot of times it's you solve it and then move forward.
Right.
Without like the legality side of things.
Yeah.
I feel like it ties in a little bit deeper though, like to where we never really had a
designated police force.
Designated police force that was on our side. Team. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like,
right.
Because I mean, they've been used so much against, like, historically, they've always been kind of used against these outside groups.
Yes.
Outside the group that was, more or less primarily centered around. So I feel like that's where that not stereotype, but that situation plays a lot into our community.
Yes.
Yeah, don't call the police because, then we're both fucked. Whereas, and people would just rather duke it out, which, I mean, I don't know. That's why, upon speaking to the police officer about stickball and how he was just like, yeah, you're crazy. I'm not going out there.
Right.
Like, no. I'll let y'all figure it out, and it's a cultural thing anyways. Like, why would I intervene with that? I think that was the best thing for that. And it's unfortunate that, people don't. It's just unfortunate that people see it, and then they think, like, oh, what a horrendous way to, like a sport, whatever. But, I mean, like, what else did you expect? It's not lacrosse. It's not basketball. I mean, those sports are available to you. You know where to go find them.
Right. It's kind of like hockey.
Yeah.
They do it in hockey. They applaud it in hockey.
It makes me think of the UFC and how hard it was for Dana White to get that started.
Right.
With the modern day gladiators.
Yeah. Yeah. A question I had that just came up is, what do you guys think, like, Kazik already kind of gave an answer to this, but I would be interested to, like, open it up, which is, coming in from the outside, I was expecting, I guess, more, I don't know if homogeneity is the word, but like more like everyone's like, okay, we're Cherokee first. And then, there's these different clans, but we're Cherokee first. Whereas like when I came in, it actually seems people are almost like Wolf Clan first, or not maybe Wolf Clan first, but you're hanging out with that community and you're actively like having conflict with the other community, and it's like there's a strong, tight knit unit below the unit of the whole Cherokee community. But I guess what I asked Isaac is, if there was a threat to the whole Cherokee community, all the different teams would come together, right?
Yeah.
How did you explain it to him? Like whenever he was coming here, how did you explain what it's like here? Like
I didn't tell him anything about how it was like. I told him. Well, we had a conversation a couple of years back. We were out hiking in the woods, and I was telling him like it reminds me of home. That's how we got into a conversation.
Mm.
But I don't really recall the details of it. But if you want to speak about your expectations of Cherokee and what I told you, based off what I told you.
Mm.
Well, before we dive into that, right?
Yeah.
So, how would you explain it initially without hearing him explain it?
Yeah, you want me to?
Like, how would you explain it on your own? I know how I would explain it, but I'm curious to hear yours too, because I've shared mine with Isaac, and then I've spent a little bit more time with him than you have. You see what I'm saying?
What about just what?
Where
like
he
Cherokee in general? Like how would I explain it to somebody?
So I'm guessing, like, to sum it up, right? You kind of, is it safe to say, assume that it would be Cherokee first?
Yeah.
And then within that, the clan second, and those internal kind of conflicts of, you know, kind of separate it once you get into the internals.
Right.
And then him coming in, right? Taking away the fact that he is coming in at a very unified time for our communities specifically. He was just saying how, like, he thought it would be more Cherokee inclined first across the board, and then our clans. Whereas, like, he got here and he's dived right into, oh, it's just Wolf Clan out the gate.
Even the colors
Wolf,
you
it's
wear.
just Wolf Town, Wolf Clan out the gate. And then you haven't really spent any other time with any other community, right? Just us, right?
I don't know how those communities are. I don't ever.
And that's what you were always telling me. That's like, it wasn't like, oh yeah, I know everything that happens over there, but I just don't hang out over there. Guys would be like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know their medicine. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, I don't even know that guy's name, you know? But like, we're Cherokee, but I don't necessarily associate or affiliate. I don't know what's happening over there. And that was surprising to me. I was like, oh, I thought you would know everyone. But
now, in these other events, other than this time period, it would be more unified, right?
Yeah.
So, like, Tri Council, for example, is unified.
Right.
But where that's kind of closer to stickball and they're stickball inclined, it did get to where we divvied off into our segregated groups.
Right.
And there might be unison in between 2 or 3 of them, but for the most part, we're taking care of our guys, you'll take care of your guys, you'll take care of your guys, and you guys won't fuck with any of our guys.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But
like the mound we were at the other day, when we had the celebration for the mound, that's a unified event. Right. All of us are together.
Remember the removal ride? That's a unified event. What's another one?
Hopefully I'll be doing that next year. I had my interview at 2:00 today. So
yeah.
Hopefully I get selected, guys.
Feel good? You feel good about it?
I felt good about it. I told him I had to go back and apologize. I always get awkward in interviews. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just even job interviews. I go in there and I'm just like,
well, just to help you with it. It's just the same concept. Yeah, man.
It's just I don't know. I don't know. It's just like one of my weaknesses. You know, anytime I go like and have to sit in front of other people like asking me questions, it's like I don't really like clam up or anything like that. I just get like a little awkward, and I don't feel like I answer the questions as best as I could.
Well, you're lucky though, because you can build on that skill pretty easily, rather than like other skills that people lack. So,
but going back to what you were saying, how I would describe Cherokee to you is, I guess I have a different outlook on it, but yeah, you are right. Like, it is Cherokee. We are very cultural based. I would say that we are all Cherokee first, but then it gets deeper than that. Like, then it's like, what community are you from? Me, I'm from like Wolftown community, like SoCo, and then that's the community I'm from. But then, if you go deeper than that, then it would be I'm a member of like the Wolf Clan. Like, it's my whole family. Majority of them are Wolf Clan.
And I was explaining to him the matriarchal side of there's a divine line of feminine and masculine. Who do you go with? Your mom's family. And I was explaining to him, like, the dad side of being in Snowbird, like, I don't really know them because it's the dad side. It's like, go with your mother in that whole, I guess, situation.
So I guess, well, the way I would explain it, right? So, and it plays a lot to how much experience you have, right? You never leave Cherokee, right? You don't know anything. You don't know too much of anything else, right? But on the back end, leaving Cherokee, I've met other indigenous people that's taken me in like no other. When I spent time out there in Wind River, Kazakh booked my flight for me. When I spent time out there, I talked to the grandmother and she talked to me like I was one of her kids. I spent like 8 hours with her one day, just sitting outside, just talking, talking. She told me all these stories. Like my first day meeting her, and we just spoke forever. And I spent like a week out there. Ended up in Texas and crashed out there. I spent 3 months out there with the grandmother there, and she was blind, and I just took care of her for quite a while.
Wow.
And spent a lot of time with her, and she talked to me like I was one of her kids. So as far as like bigger than just Cherokee unified, I feel like there's at least there's a small number of indigenous people as a whole that we can all band together.
Right.
But then smaller than that, like if we see other Cherokee out, I feel like we're more inclined to like
go hang out with them, do stuff with them.
Yeah, if we see him out in Atlanta, and like if I never met Jamie, but he's in trouble, but I know he's from Cherokee, I've seen him at men's league playing stickball, I'm more inclined to go help him out than I am anybody else, right? So it's just like that's where that Cherokee unified comes in.
Right.
But when we come back home though,
everyone's Cherokee, so
and we hit the stickball field, we know what it is. You know what I'm saying? But that doesn't take away from the fact that we are still the same. Because at the end of the day, I feel like if Cherokee as a whole ran into a threat, it would be stickball men that
from all the communities
that would band together.
A very not super recent, but I think a good example would be the Dakota Access Pipeline with the Dakotas, right? Mm-hmm. And Cherokee sent like money and people and supplies up there to help out. Because like, although we aren't the same tribe, they are still our family, our people. Because you have, like you said, the layers of communities, your tribe, the sister tribes out in Oklahoma, the other tribes, all that incorporated with the history of colonization come in here.
Right.
Yeah, so I would just explain it as like Native American first.
Yeah.
Within this boundary, right? So within the planet. And then smaller than that, I'm Cherokee. Smaller than that, I'm Wolftown. Smaller than that, I'm Junaluska.
Right.
You know, that's how I would explain it in my own terms.
Yeah.
But those are definitely physical borders as far as where I'm at. So, I mean, right now, like, we're sitting in Paint Town, but, like, my whole family's from SoCo, Wolftown, like, and we spent pretty much all of our lives up there. And then we end up here, but it's like, as long as we're in Cherokee and we're walking around, like, there's no it's hard for me to say there's animosity between anybody else, so I talk to everybody.
Yeah.
But if shit hit the fan and I see Jamie over there getting into it with somebody else and they happen to be from another stickball team, it's like, okay, that's what it's going to be.
Right.
And I'm sure if they see, you know, and it's never like that. I've never experienced that on the outs. You know, we've always lived everything on the field, but I'm just letting you know, like, if that's what it was, you know, it could quickly turn into that. You know, I think we're pretty based around the protective aspect more than the aggressor. Yeah. Whereas people get that confused a lot of times, but I genuinely and confidently can say that we're protectors first, aggressors second. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. At the end of the day, I always base it back to the protectiveness, defending each other, taking care of one another. Cherokee comes after Wolftown if you want to do that. If you want to look from the inside out, Junaluska, Wolftown, Cherokee, Native American. You want to look at it from the outside in, it just switch the numbers around. Native American, Cherokee, Wolftown, Junaluska. So,
and it leans more towards like the first example of how you explained it, especially around like times like this. Like, it's okay, like it's Wolftown first, just for the fair. I mean,
yeah. I mean, outside of that, we don't like. You've never gotten into it with anybody outside of this, right?
No,
I've never gotten into it with anybody outside of this. I've had people say stuff to me during it, on the field, even during the week, but like.
But after that, it's it's just I wouldn't even say animosity. It's just the heightened senses of like the camaraderie among the communities.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, we want to take it home this year. Like that's all it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we just want our community to win. We want our team to win, and they want their teams to win. Each community, and then after that, though, it's done. Like we sitting up on the hill with Waylon, talking to him, watching Oklahoma play. Like I was hanging out there with him.
I'll bullshit with the best of them. Like I mean, I remember just talking shit to Dee sometimes. I see him somewhere and we just chatted up or Tim Swaney at a coffee shop. Like it's just
one of the things Ari acknowledged was the facial expressions here and how there's an on and off.
How do you point? Over that way. That way.
But he was saying like on the field, everyone's like crazy, like and then right after, it's like stoic look of like,
oh yeah,
not smiling.
Yeah. That too just plays into I guess it's that would be your point of view, seeing only Wolftown. I feel like that's a bigger, because we wouldn't know,
right?
But you'd have to go see another team do it as well to see if that's
totally
the same concept or not. You know what I'm saying?
This man should come out with us to Red Clay next year. He should come out.
Abe already asked him to play.
Come out, yeah.
So he'd come try it out. Cossack took him to go pick up ball a little bit.
Yeah. I was running. I gotta
start running. Harder.
Yeah.
Get ready.
He's pretty shifty though.
Is he? Hey, he ain't fast.
Jamie thinks he's fast now because he cut weight and started running for an entire year.
Run 30 miles an hour faster.
He didn't figure that out until the first game of the year.
Yeah,
but
let's see what happens.
Corey would always give me hell in practice. He'd be like, "Run, just run."
It just never made sense to me. He played like he was 250 and stocky, like just couldn't be like an unmovable stump. But you can't be that way when you're at 185, like 180 flat.
Getting tossed around.
Anybody could toss you around. It's a victim. Yeah. What do you say? Victim weight, right?
Victim weight. That's why I said I didn't ever want to drop under 200 because once you're under 200, you're a victim.
Seen that a couple of times.
Could I take a quick second?
Yeah.
Take a quick second real quick. Go ahead, man.
This guy.
Okay.
Smart man. Blood flowing.
Let's go run a 6 miler after this.
Before we divvied off, we were talking about what? Being victim weight?
Yeah.
Or no, going to
Red Clay.
No, going to other. Well, yeah, did we? Was that the last conversation? Going to Red Clay?
Well, yeah.
It's a good pickup right here.
I was on the break. So I'm back.
I feel like a good thing about Ari is he knows how to, I guess, blend in and pick up on cultural cues wherever he's at. And so for him to come here and to be
actually, yeah, let's talk about that real quick because remember what we discussed earlier about how you tell me if you agree. We've already discussed it. Physical cues, right? So like a lot of the touching is like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just like because a lot of us, like, there's a lot of stories about certain people touching you and giving bad medicine to you, or like, you know, they're doing something to you. Then like it's like doing the vibes and the aura and that sort of thing. So did you see any of that being around as well?
Yeah, totally. You mean just like noticing the kind of the social dynamic or the body language?
Either or, body language, social dynamic.
Yeah.
I guess like another example that I can pull from that is like when you saw us all discussing and talking in that circle,
yeah,
everybody had a good like
space,
space apart.
Yeah.
I feel like most people from the group that you saw us around, the stickball team, always also had that social awareness of who was behind them, who was around them, their left and right.
Totally.
Pick up on anything like that or see anything different as far as dynamics go?
Yeah, definitely.
On your travels and whatnot compared to anywhere else?
Yeah. I mean, this place has a unique cultural field. Like a completely unique cultural, it feels like a different place than America or like other places in America, right? And because it is, right? It's a sovereign place. It's a sovereign nation.
Right.
And it feels like that. And I've mentioned that to Kaizak a few times. Like The stories that people are running are very different than the stories of, the Bay Area, or even just people who are not native. Like because we kind of, whether we know it or not, like we're thinking through stories, right? Like, okay, this thing happens, then this thing happens, right? There's like these narrative structures in our minds, and it's clear, at least was clear to me when you come here. It's like, oh, okay, there's a different way of understanding. There's a different story about the way people should interact. There's a different story about how men and women should interact. There's a different story about what is acceptable behavior, demeanor, the way of talking, the way of expressing yourself. And I would say also, if I were to dial in on one of the big things that just stuck out to me initially, is the level, or where the action is happening, it seems to me, is on a very subtle level. Like it's almost like where the focus of the people who know what's up is on something that's like not being said or even really like pointed to, but is like happening, and everyone's like attentive to it, but not really being like, this is what we're doing. It's just like everyone's attentive to this thing that's happening, and you can really tell when their attention's on something else, or they're on a different wave, they're on a different radio station, because everyone who's on the radio station is like quiet, look like kind of in this whole, like kind of this holding field of like, okay, we're getting ready for this game, or like, we're post the game, we're like catching up, but it's not like people are like yapping, like it's not scattered. It's actually like it's almost like meditative, how like kind of like focused everyone is in a way on this central thing. I even noticed that like when we were just standing at one of the stickball games, and someone was like talking a lot, or just like making a lot of noise, or like reacting heavily to like everything that was happening, and like everyone was kind of just like ignoring it, and was just was much more focused, and just like the way people carry themselves and hold themselves, like there's a sensitivity to the vibe, as opposed to, I think what American culture often gets criticism for, especially abroad, is how they don't pick up on those vibes. Like, people walking around in wherever in Europe making like a huge noise, even those people are like quieter, or they're sitting there, they're in a conversation, whatever. And Americans coming through, people, would always tell me growing up, like, yeah, we just know who's an American. We can just spot it, because Americans are kind of in a Americans are in a me story, because Americans don't come from a people. They're all these different people, right? That came to this place, took over this place, and the culture of this place, or the culture that they brought, or that America is about, is the commercial culture, right? It's the culture of technology and progress and success and these sorts of things. So people are they're in a one-player game, right? How do I, for me, make it big? How do I make something interesting with my life? How do I have a big career? How do I progress? Right? It's not enough to be someone's son. It's not enough to be part of a family. It's not enough to have come from somewhere that was great and beautiful. It's like, what are you doing now? What are you doing with your day? Like, get up, hustle, work hard, make money, go where you need to go. So it's like this me story. And when you're in a me story, like, why wouldn't I talk all the time? Why would I care that some old people are standing around? Like, I need to do my thing. I'm Mr. Me guy, as opposed to like, wait, I'm part of a community. Community's doing something. What is the community doing? What is my place in this community? What role do I play in this community? Who, you know what I'm saying? The story is really different. As opposed to it being like a tribal or a community-based story that you're a part of, and you're attentive to the little ones and the elders, and you're trying to find your place in between it and fit into your part of the circle and do what you need to do. It's like, well, we're all individuals here. So everyone's always talking, right? Because they have to say what they're about. Yeah. It's like, hey, how you doing, man? Oh, great to see you. Yeah, I was over there. I was doing, it's like this. You have to say, okay, this is what I'm thinking about. Let me put that on the table. You're thinking about. Whereas here, everyone's already thinking about the same shit. Yeah. Why do we need to talk about it? Like, right? Who's Wolftown. Who's not Wolftown. Yeah. You know what we're about to do in this stickball game. You know what we've been doing. Like, who everyone is.
You saw it as a kid. Like, how we do things.
Right. In American culture, like, you're constantly spinning up all this stuff in every conversation because people are coming from such different places.
That kind of reminds me of like our leadership too, when they tell us like, act like you've been here before.
Right.
And it's like, oh yeah, forgot. Like, not forgot, but it's just like, okay. Like, lock it in, fucking reel it back in, you know.
Yeah, reel it back in.
And that's why I was trying to explain to you earlier that you'd probably have to see it from another team to see if you see a difference.
Right.
But that facial change from when we're playing to the moment we stop, and then the moment we stop, we're like,
yeah, the seriousness is gone.
You know, lock it back in and fucking get right, like we fucking been here before.
Like I was telling Ari the other night when we were sitting down, I was just like, yeah, it's like I got home, like right after you introduced him, and I was like, man, I didn't even really talk to him that much. It's kind of rude, to be honest, but it was just that single-minded focus that I had. Like I had a goal, you know, that there's tomorrow. We've got a game tomorrow.
This job's not done.
And it also like plays into what you spoke about earlier about or what we were talking about earlier about coming into it and initially thinking like we're all Cherokee, but then when you got here it was like, okay, hold up, we're all Wolftown, you know. So then, but it's like it's because you came at such a extreme, like important time for us.
You come at the peak,
the peak of
the Wolftown,
right? Yeah. So it's like every community has that, right? If we were from Birdtown, like you'd see the same thing. Like I'm sure you'd see the same thing. I would like to think you would see the same thing, where it's just like, no, this week we're Birdtown. Like you know, not saying that we ever forget that we're all Cherokee, but most importantly, we're Birdtown,
right?
Or like Hummingbirds or Big Cove. I know Big Cove has a phenomenally huge morality unified group. You know. Even Oklahoma, I mean, they're getting up there, and it has to do with funding and support from their side. But one day they're gonna come down and they're gonna be like, "We're Cherokee Nation." Like,
and you've seen it
today. We're Cherokee Nation. We're not all Cherokee. We're just Cherokee Nation.
Right.
And they might split into two different ones.
As you've seen after the games concluded, and Oklahoma came to eat with us. We're all unified after the games,
right?
To a certain extent,
right.
Now that's over, we're all Cherokee.
Yeah.
We can be friends before, we can be friends after, but in the moment, you don't have red on. It is what it is.
Yeah,
you know? It took me a minute to like turn that focus off, because even after the game, that last game we played, Corey was like, "It's okay, it's Jamie. We're done. It's all right. Like, you can breathe now." Because he really did. Like
we were walking back,
I was just like, I don't know what it was. I was just like.
He's like, dude, I'm still fucking shaking. I'm like, dude, lock it in. We're good.
He's like, chill.
Reel it in.
He's like, it's over with, Jamie. We're good.
He was still talking about like there was still plays to be made, and it was just like, he's like, fuck, I should have done.
We won.
I should have done da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, dude, you fucking scored the last point. Like, we're good.
Yeah,
you know, good. You can reel it in. We got a year. Like, we came out here, did what we were supposed to do, did what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
We didn't fucking beat around the bush, bullshit, none of that shit. Like, we did it. Relax. You can see him over there breathing. All right. Roger that. Like, you know.
I was like, all right, time to turn it off.
Yeah. So, but that's how intense it is, right? You've got everybody focusing on the same thing. It's just like you putting.
Yeah, everyone focused on the same thing. I really think there's something there. Like, everyone focused on the same thing. Like, today, you know, even if you're in the same house as someone, like me and my sister in the same house or whatever, going to the same school, like everyone's phone algorithm is going to be completely different, right? Like, it's going to start to notice the things that you like more and don't like more. It's going to start giving you more of what you like and less of what you don't like, right? And put you down eventually in a silo of like your own uniqueness. And so when I go on Instagram or when any of us go on social media, we're seeing like pretty much entirely different like worlds, you know, in those places. And then we come back together and we've thought the whole day about something that this person doesn't care one bit about. And I think that's one of the big frustrations of this time period. Like for me growing up or just seeing, you know, kids my age is like, it's so hard to find common ground, even if you're from the same town, because you've been looking at different media every day. So you've been trained on an entirely different set of information. Whereas here, like the focus is on something that is communally shared. There's a communal sense of meaning. Like Junaluska doesn't just mean Junaluska to you guys. It's not like you guys have a story about Junaluska. The community also has a story about Junaluska, right? It's not just like you guys love playing stickball and you're part of a stickball subculture. It's like the community is excited about stickball.
Right.
And like, yes, you guys are the players of stickball, but they are the witnessers of stickball and they support stickball in their own ways. The women support in their own ways. The rest of the community supports in their own ways. The amount the amount that other people care about each thing that you care about is like way higher than what I notice out in the world, right? Like out in the world, the amount I might care about this thing is like, I think about this thing every day. This person's never thought about it before in their life. How are we going to have a conversation? That's why we need a yap, right? That's why we need to talk and like do all this shit to like explain and like bring people into your world. Whereas here, it's like people are living in a shared reality. Like, you know, oh, I know his grandma. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I played against him last year. Like everything's kind of stays within the circle. It gives every interaction, everything that's happening so much more meaning, because I feel like you're participating in a much bigger story than just, yeah, this is cool because I think it's cool, but no one else is interested in this. It's like, no, my ancestors thought this was cool. Like every single one of them thought this was cool. And like, I also
it was the
think this is
thing
cool.
to do.
And the women think this is cool. And the kids think, you know, it's just like, it's the thing to do. And I think that gives so much meaning to life.
I definitely agree.
I found it funny when he was like looking at the age groups, the 0 to 5, like 0, like straight out the womb, like you're up there.
What are you doing?
Toss him, like toss him to the wolves.
Yeah.
As soon as they can stand, pick up a stick. I like to say as soon as they show interest, because there's some kids that just, you know,
right.
Some of them just aren't interested. I mean, they're all different, just like you're saying, like that, you know, development. But some kids out the womb, they're like watching it, and then as soon as they can stand, they're trying to get a stick and and they're good to go. Other kids are like, and then 18, 15 years old, they're like, I think I'll try it, and then they just love it.
It's kind of like, I don't remember like being out there as a kid. I don't understand like my story on how I actually started playing. Really. I just remember one day I was just like, oh, I think we might have seen them playing, practicing.
Practicing or the field, the fair?
At the practice field, yeah. And I was like, Dad, I want to go out there and try it. And he's like, well, we'll take you out there tomorrow or something like that. I think I was like 11, 12. I remember playing like little kids one time, couple games, just against each other because nobody else had any teams during like whenever I was around. Only people that had a team really was Big Cove. They had just a men's team. It wasn't a little kids team whenever I was growing up. And then like I took a break for some reason. I would come back out when I was like, I guess about 14 or 15. And then after that, I was just with the men.
I think a big thing here is like what you guys are bringing up is that showed interest. Like no one's going to force you to do anything. You have to put yourself out there to be a part of it. But if you're not interested, then it's all right.
Right.
And it's like on that individual level, in a way of like, if you want to play, we have the tools for you if you want it. But you got to have the internal want to do it.
Right.
And I feel like no one's gonna like ask you outside of being your buddy, right? Like if we're cool and we're friends, like, oh, like share this experience with me,
right?
But I'm not gonna walk around and like, oh, you're stocky, dude. Why don't you play stickball? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like no one's gonna really ask you to come and play stickball. Like they'll probably ask you to try, but we're not like if you don't like it, then it's just like okay,
right? There's no sign-up sheets or anything. Like you show up to practice. You know where we practice. You know the times. Show up if you want to.
You get that initial invitation. Outside of that, you're just like
ask you, but we're not going to force your hand.
Yeah,
right.
So hey, you like, you know where we're at.
I feel like that's the complete opposite of Ari's. I guess growing up with the relationship with your mother and how she was kind of. If you want to speak about it as much as you want.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I don't know if. Yeah, we were in a program for sure. We were in a program, and you know, she had us do a bunch of extracurricular stuff and things like that. But you know, it's the ones that I didn't enjoy, I didn't stick with. But art was the one that I really stuck with. So she always nurtured that passion, and so I got into startups honestly through art and design, and then the startup thing, and it's kind of its own story.
Two here, I would say like well, actually outside of like Cherokee. Outside, like, I guess the culture side of things, there's these deadlines and places to be, places to be.
I see what you're saying.
And not just, you're okay, you're here, you're home in the present moment.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that's very interesting to me here is like, at home, growing up, in school, at Stanford, in the modern world in general, everything is really abstracted. What I mean by that, it's like, okay, I signed up on this sheet, so I'm a part of this team, right? Or like because in an abstract way, like in a conceptual way, like it says somewhere Ari Nazem is part of Wolftown stickball team, let's say. That means something just on its own, the word. But like here, it's like there's no sign-up sheet, there's no abstraction. It's like either you're on the field or you're not. Like either you're playing with the guys or you're not. It's not like, oh, I have this degree or I have this thing. It's like, are you with the people? Are you with the community? Are you doing the thing? Same with like the medicine that you were talking about. It's not like you sign up for a course and like someone's going to take you through these steps. It's like
different ways of teaching.
If you are interested, you're going to come. If you're, you know,
it reminds me of, I guess, like modernity. Is that how you would explain it? Of like showing an interest with like apprenticeships and stuff like that, right? Instead of like the classroom where it's boxed in, literally like physical box, and you're like learning all these things, and despite if you show interest or not, you still have to know it, right? I guess in the modern sense, to survive or be like able to function as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I guess speaking of that, right, being able to, I'm going to tie it into like the functionality of being who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess to go into this, right, y'all ran into a situation the other night where
I'm getting it fixed tomorrow, chat. Tomorrow morning.
So from my point of view, right, I didn't go out with them celebrating the 4-0 win this season. These three went out on celebration night, and something happened, yada, yada, yada. He comes back with a chipped tooth and a scraped up lip and palm. I think Jamie might have a bruise or two on rib, gut, something.
No.
And Ari comes back with this like, damn, they was squabbling. So
it wasn't even that serious.
So just but before we get into that, right? Before we dive into that, there's a system that you developed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that played kind of a role into it as far as what they were trying to break out of. Could it have played a role?
I think the system could help us understand what happened, but it didn't play a role specifically
in that moment. Understand what happened.
Yeah.
If you want to give us a quick draw up of what was developed, and then, okay, this is what I saw kind of happening, and then you allowed them. You took a step back. You took a back seat and tried to allow them to figure it out, because being kind of foreign and new to this, you didn't want to step over any boundaries that were being placed as far as them trying to figure it out and them knowing each other since birth.
Right.
There, so.
For sure.
So,
I mean, yeah, I can.
Jamie, if you want to tune into this, he was explaining it to us, and it made too much sense to me, just like earlier, where I just didn't really have anything to add into it. I was like, okay, what now? Like, this is, like, how do I fix it? But I guess that goes further into me discovering on my side, him discovering on his side, you discovering on your side. But this is just his observation, is what he made, you know.
Yeah. The thing I'll say before I go into drawing is the fundamental theory is that the psyche, the human experience, is symmetric with nature. Nature is, we arose out of nature and we kind of contain nature within us. So our emotions are symmetric with, or they're like the seasons, and they're like the qualities of the natural world that we're already familiar with, but we also have them inside of us. And so the idea here is making a map of what kind of human emotion looks like, so that we can understand where we can do work and where we can do healing, basically. When is the right time to tap into what energy, by having a map, as opposed to just being like, I guess there's these different emotions I could feel. But it's like, actually, this is a way to look at the emotions kind of together. So it looks like a circle. A circle is whole. Planets are circles, cells are circles, atoms are circles. Everything sacred is a circle. This is the north direction, the eastern direction, the southern direction, and the western direction. And so this dot in the center, you could say, is like consciousness. This is like your awareness. Yeah, maybe awareness is a better word. And then it can go to all these different places or experience all these different things. So it's a 2-axis map. So the first axis is from doing to feeling. You could also say being. The southern energy is usually associated with the feminine energy, the mother, and the north is associated with the masculine energy of the father. The father helps us get the hard things done. The mother helps us relax, feel good, feel safe in the moment. So the south, the mother, the north, the father. The north is about doing, the south is about feeling and being. And I associate this, the south, which is when the sun is the strongest, is when it's in the south. I associate this with the month or the season of summer, and the north with winter. So if you think about if this is the track of the sun as well, it rises in the east, it reaches its peak in the south, it starts waning down into sunset in the west, and then it's like the darkest period where you were talking about with the winter arc, right? That's kind of the north. So then the second axis from doing to feeling is from light to dark. So the sun rises in the east, that's light, happy, jovial, excited, and west is the dark, where this is serious, intense, difficult, painful, those sorts of things, heavy, serious, right? Light, playful, joyful, goofy, stuff like that. So the idea is that these are kind of the directions that the psyche has within it, and you could imagine, or we could personify the various energies as being kind of the light mother is the goddess of the south, the southeast. You have the dark mother, goddess of the southwest. You have the light father, who's the god of the northeast. And then you have the dark father, who's the god of the northwest. And these are kind of primordial archetypes that exist within our psyche that basically different characters we can play. We can all play these 4 characters, and they're useful at different times in our life. When we need to do things, like take responsibility for things, we could tap into the dark father, the light father. That would be, the light father is like the healthy parent, like the nurturer, the caregiver, the healer, the provider, right? The one who's taking care of things, taking care of business, providing, doing what's right, doing what's light. The dark father is the part of us that does the things that are hard. So like going to the gym, playing stickball, hard work, anything that's difficult and requires effort, and for you to get out of the space of the light and get out of the space of being, right? When you need to do shit and that shit is hard, that's when you're hanging out with him. And you can personify it as a goddess as well, but I call it the dark father because it
just makes sense.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And then the dark mother is about feeling dark. So the dark mother is like that part of our psyche is helpful when it's still the mother energy. It's still nurturing. It's still helping you feel okay and feel safe and feel like everything's going to be okay. But it's allowing you specifically to feel darkness. It's not trying to cheer you up. It's not trying to pull you out of the experience you're having. It's having you come to terms with and be okay with the darkness that's happening, whether that's crying, whether that's screaming, whether that's fear, and also other emotions in the body like sexual desires. Like she also is kind of the guardian of those and the sacredness of those desires, and allowing us to have a healthy relationship with those things, with our anger, with our sadness, with our desires. She's kind of the guardian of those. And then the light mother is kind of the one who takes care of our inner child, the one who wants to, no matter how old we are and tough we are and how hardcore, we're playing stickball. The part of us that, wants to watch cartoons here and there, or eat cereal, or just have fun and not take things too seriously and goof around with your friends, and just be kids. Just be kids again. And she's the one that says, yeah, why can't you do that? Why can't we have some fun? Why does everything have to be so serious all the time? And why do we always have to be so productive? Why can't we sometimes just relax and be and feel good? And she in her healthy form, is the guardian of that. And you can imagine each of these have kind of their shadow form as well. So like, the light mother is like someone who never wants to work, never wants to engage in anything that's difficult. Everything's always too lighthearted and they can't ever talk about anything serious. The dark mother is the unhealthy form of that would be someone who's, kind of brooding or moping in that state for too long, or taking things way too deep, or crying about everything, or being too sensitive about everything, and getting stuck in that place. The dark father, unhealthy dark father would be like someone who like is always in the war zone, right? Like can't turn it off for a second, can't relax, can't calm down. It's always like, what are we doing? Where are we going? What needs to happen? Like kind of like military, like 24/7, we knew a lot of people like that at Stanford who were just like constantly working, focused on the time schedules, focused on this, that, the other thing, no time for chat, no time for anything, just go, go, go all the time.
All the time.
And then the light father, the unhealthy form of the light father is like, basically the savior, right? Like I'm going to help you, but really it's about me. It's not about you who I'm helping. I'm actually, no, I got to be taking care of you. I got to be doing XYZ thing. It's almost like smothering you, like killing you with kindness sort of deal, or just being fake, right? Like not actually wanting to do something, but offering to do it and then having resentment, stuff like that. Because it takes a lot of energy to share light with people and be a provider and a caretaker. But if you're doing that more than is actually needed, you can, it can be bad in its own way. So that's a basic map. And then I have, if these are the seasons and kind of the, the times of year, I have one type for each month as well that goes around. But that's kind of a layer deeper. But there are 12 that go around, kind of like a clock. And each one is just like the specific archetypical energy of that part of the wheel. So like dead north is the king or the ruler, the one who like makes sure the stuff that needs to get done is getting done and is like running stuff, right? A little bit after it, I guess right there, you would have the healer. Here you have the sage or the thinker. Here you have the jester. Here you have the innocent. Here you have the explorer, or like kind of the drifter, the seeker. Here you have the lover. Here you have the animal, or like the wild man. There's a lot of that here. Here you have the muse or the enticer. This is like, the seductress in a way, hypnotizer. Here you have the magician or the transformer, the shapeshifter, the one who can remake themselves. This would be the outlaw, like the rebel. This would be the warrior. So we could go into each of those, but those are, I synthesized those from looking at the mythologies of a lot of cultures. So Greek culture, Norse culture, Indian culture, Chinese culture, Native American myths. These archetypes kind of repeat again and again. You have the jester, you have the chief, you have the warrior, you have the lover, you have, the thinker. You have all these different people. So, and they fit somewhere in the circle.
Okay. Did you catch all that?
I feel like I've...
Mike.
Oh, sorry. I feel like I've seen something like this, like on my Instagram feed. It's like, not what you're describing, but it has like the same archetypes that you're describing. It's like a quiz you can take.
That's
stuff
right.
Like that.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, I should do that just to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be disappointed.
Well, too, so me and him sat down when he first explained it to me. He kind of gave me like a very, like, I don't want to say vague, but it was pretty quick, like, summarization of like what he had saw just in the few days that you've been around us. And I was curious what he saw, like, with you. And then obviously you spent more time with Kazakh.
Yeah.
So in the same concept. Just initially.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things that I've noticed is that it's kind of like you were saying, like when you leave Cherokee, you identify with like all Cherokee, right? Mm-hmm. And then like when you come to Cherokee, you identify with Wolftown. And then when you're in Wolftown, you identify with Junaluska, right? So it's like every time you go a layer deeper, like it's kind of the same. Like if a bunch of warriors are hanging out together, there's going to be the warrior that's like the jester. There's going to be the warrior that's like cracking jokes and whatever. There's going to be the warrior that's like still super stoic and like, locked in. There's going to be the one that's like kind of innocent, right? But like from the outside, they're all warriors, right? And you wouldn't necessarily know unless you knew them that there was a variation because they all kind of look the same from the outside. So I would say from the outside, you guys, I think you have a deep connection, I would say, with like the Dark Father in like a healthy way. Like the warrior, like when you guys are talking about, you just like muscle through it, or like, the stuff like stickball, these are some big hits. Like,
get up. Like,
big hits. And I'm seeing Kaiser just like scream at the guy, like, get up. Like, like, get up, get back in there. And all the women screaming like, get up. Like that's the warrior spirit. The warrior, which is right here. This one is the warrior, that's the spirit of doing what's hard, doing what needs to get done, but is painful, is difficult. I would say you guys all embody that to a degree that's incredibly, incredibly powerful compared to pretty much anyone I know. You guys have that real warrior spirit and have been cultivating it like actively. Some people go to the gym, okay, right? Some people work long hours in front of a computer. That's one way to tap into the warrior. It's the same energy, but you're in some ways tapping into it, and it's almost like final form, which is actual little brother of war. Right. So I would say from the outside, all of you guys have a lot of that. But obviously when you come into it, each of you has your unique things. And like the king of the warriors, the warrior of the warriors, like that sort of thing. I would say Kaizek, I think actually has a good amount. It's not written here. But he also has a good amount of the sage, like trying to understand things or think deeply about things, like kind of like the thinker, and like asking questions. I think that's one of the reasons we connected, because you were like asking about stuff and I was asking you about stuff. And there's an attitude of learning. You want to learn and you want to understand things, the things that you're interested in, that is. But I would say you definitely have some of that. I know, I was saying that you have some of the jester. All of you guys have some of the jester for sure.
I ain't got none of that. I ain't got none of that
shit. But you definitely have the jester for sure.
For sure.
I think Kaizek's funny, but not necessarily because he's trying to be funny.
He's just funny.
He's just funny. You're not like trying to be the jester. You're not like making face and shit. You're just the way you are is funny. I would say. I've seen the way you guys like take care of kids or interact with the older people. There's definitely a lot of like respect and like care that's being given that way, and that would be like the caregiver up there, or the healer, but you call it provider, healer, caregiver. But a lot of you guys are taking responsibility for others, and that is activating that archetype of bringing the light, being the light. The kids bugging, helping them out or putting them straight. That's definitely kind of that parent energy, that father energy for sure. And then of course when we're in the car and listening to the music and vibing or talking about deep stuff, that's when we'd be going and hanging out with the Dark Mother and really feeling that stuff. And I think
like the other night,
that other night was actually really the animal energy, I would say, which this is the animal down here, and
and along with that there's a story to tell here in a minute when we get done with that. But, so you saw a lot of the animal that night?
Yeah, I think so.
Letting them out.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think.
This guy's animal.
He was trying to unlock the animal in him and saying like, get it out, like wake it up.
So you guys go out.
So
just to dive into it, since we're gonna go there. Y'all go out, celebrate, end up at the casino. I'm asleep. 10 p.m. I'm out. Gone.
Then we end up somewhere else.
Just out in the cut, resin it out.
Yeah, kind of. But
I was initially just angry, just telling him walking, telling him
Then he tackles me. I don't know why he tackled me.
You said get it out.
Yeah,
this is before that.
This is before that. This is way
before that. You tackled him
before that.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, and then that's how I got it started.
So you guys are drunk.
Yeah,
you guys are walking. Well, I'm assuming
I didn't play this year.
So you guys are about to head out, right?
He blasted me.
So you guys are about to head out, and he just blasts you out the woodwork. Y'all are already talking, and you're like, "I'm mad."
Yeah.
And then tackles him.
Yeah. And he just tackles me. And I was just like, "Bro, all right, relax, chill." And he was, and I don't know if he was hitting me or not. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
He was just being feisty.
Yeah, and I was just like, all right, chill, relax, da 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 da, and then we get up, and then we start walking towards the cars, trying to get him down to his truck, and then just emotions, angry, just stuff we've dealt with in our childhood and stuff like that. I can tell he hasn't really
I haven't worked on it.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a buck. I don't even know where to start.
And we just start talking about that, and then just casually, just kept getting worse. Like he more angry. So I was just like, "Well, get it out. Just let it out, man. Like you gotta get it out sometime." He's like, "Well, I just want to fight." I was like, "Well, we're not going to fight, but like, if you want to exchange a couple body shots, we can do that." And that's how that whole situation came about.
Yeah. And then
how do you end up on the ground?
I tripped on a curb. I tripped on a curb.
Nah, he was really trying to hit me. He swung a miss and there he went.
Yeah. How do you think we could implement some healing processes in Cherokee from outside sources that you have?
It's a big question. It's a good question. Yeah. So in that moment, I've done a lot of healing work on myself over the past 4 years. That like I literally left school, and that's what I focused on. Like, how do I heal what's going on in me? I didn't go into every aspect of my story, but there was a lot I was wrangling with that I needed to fix expediently because it was driving me crazy. And I basically studied, how do we heal? How does a human self-heal, and what are the healing modalities that we need? And so that's, I would say, one of the major things I've studied over the past few years, and one of the roles that I play for my friends back home in a little men's group that I have of like 11 guys, and I'll guide them through that process and work with them one-on-one. And I'm soon going to be putting out, it's because it's tied up with all the other work that I do, because it requires an understanding of who the human being is, or what a human being is, to understand how that could get broken. So I have a map of kind of what the right way is, and you can show where it goes wrong, or
I guess
where there's problems.
Vaguely too. Sorry for interrupting, but just a really brief, so we don't lose track of the conversation.
Sure.
But real brief, like what type of work you did. What did you work on? What did you go to school for? Real quick.
Yeah, real quick.
Maybe even a background of, you said you started a business at one point?
Yeah.
Just real quick.
Sure. Super quick. When I was 14, started my first company. That was an app company. I raised money from investors for that and ran that for 2 years with a small team until I was about 16. And I wanted to go to college, so I shut that down because it was taking up a lot of time. And I came up with the second business, which I could do alongside a lot of college prep work and whatnot, because it was a freelance design company. The thing people really loved about our app was the design, and all our investors and the people we pitched it to were like, "Wow, the design of this is so great." So when I wanted to make money and have it fit in my schedule, I said, "Okay, let's start a design firm." And so we went back to those same investors and started working for the companies that they had in the incubators. So like startup companies that are coming up, and we would do their branding and their websites and their presentations, pitch presentations to investors. And that was a lot of fun for us. I love storytelling and I love aesthetics, and my partner Ohm that I was doing it with, we just had a great chemistry. And so we ran that for a few years and ended up working for people, like Facebook and Airbnb and bigger companies that also wanted design work done, but we kind of got a name for ourselves at some point, and that was doing well. So when I went to Stanford, my focus wasn't really as much on how do I use this to get a job, because I knew I could kind of figure that out. It was more, what am I interested in? What do I want to study? So every year I was at Stanford, I studied something different, and usually at the graduate level, so at like the PhD level, because if you don't declare a major, you're kind of in like the back rooms of the institution. And I would just walk into, PhD class and say, "Hey, I'm going to read just as much as these guys. I'm going to be just as diligent as these guys. It's a 5-person class. Like I'll be right there with you. I don't have a major. Like I can meet the requirements. Like take a chance on me." And the professors would.
Stanford, type of class.
Yeah. So I was in those primarily for philosophy, religious studies, and product design. So there's a product design school at Stanford where like a lot of famous products came out of, like Jewel came out of there, and
Jewel
Jewel
like
Pod,
Jewel came out of that program. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Instagram founders, Snapchat founders lived in the room I lived in at our fraternity. which
Yeah, I
you
lived
were
in
in
the
as
same
well.
room. Yeah, we lived in the same room, different times, but same room.
Same room. Yeah, so
Damn.
Was doing that. Started my third company was a robotic tattooing company, kind of rogue, but I've always loved tattoos and wanted to do something with it in a technological way. So it kind of looked like this, honestly. Just had a tattoo machine here on the end of it, and then it was had vision and it could see where the arm was and start doing stuff, and ran that for a while. But FDA needed to put it through FDA to get the ink legal
Approved
and
and
the
everything
arm
like that.
approved, and that was going to take like 6-7 years. And I was like, I don't really know if I want to do this for the rest of my life, but this was fun. So then the fourth company was back to a product design firm. So now that I had more skills from Stanford and I'd gotten a bit more educated on how to do that, we were basically building apps for people.
Okay.
So when a company was like, why isn't our app working? We go in there and say, okay, it seems like the users could use this, build in these features, all that sort of stuff. So very like Silicon Valley kind of focused startup technology app stuff. But when COVID hit, everything kind of everything that was boiling under the surface like came up, kind of in my family, in my work relationship, and everything in my life all at once. And I basically could finally critique modernity outright. Like I had critiques of modernity in the back of my head, or critiques of the technology way, or the Silicon Valley lifestyle, or just the modern way of life. I had those critiques in me, but I was still like, well, I still got to make money. I still got to do my thing. I still got to also just win respect and prove to myself that I can do things that I put my mind to, and be a successful person. So once my fourth company did, made some good money and I felt like I was in a good place, I was like, okay, I know I can do this, but what's the meaning of life? It seems like my parents figured out how to do like the technology thing and like make a name for themselves thing, but they maybe haven't figured out like the meaning of life thing, or like how to live right thing. And it seems like we as a culture and as a people on the planet are fucking that up, and we don't really understand how to do that either. So I started going into investigating that, but specifically on the therapeutic work that I did, I used a bunch of different methods. So I guess you could say body, heart, mind, spirit all kind of have their own things that need to be healed. So one of the first things I did, and honestly, one of the first things many people I think should do just to heal, it's like before you start learning any fancy theories, whatever, just like make sure the body's healthy, make sure make sure the body's healthy. That's kind of the first level, because a lot of problems actually just come up in your psyche from the body being really tired and you having to do something that's like emotionally or mentally hard, and you just literally not having the energy to like be able to meet that with like focus and clarity and like as your highest self.
Right.
A lot of the times like you get an argument like when you're already tired, or like you're already kind of like something's wrong in the body, and then you get triggered and then it just starts
going. Then you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right? So there's a lot you can do to get the body right. I was doing a lot of yoga and meditation, or I guess meditations for other stuff, but I was doing a lot of yoga. I was doing cold plunge and sauna, and running and compound workouts. Just getting the body right was a big thing that I did. For the emotional healing, there's something called internal family systems therapy, and that's one of the modalities that I was using, which is you basically are trying to excavate and I can hover on this for a second because I think it would be useful for Cherokee, and it ties back to what I was saying earlier as well with the adaptations to environments, which is that when the psyche is developing, when it's young, certain things happen that are overwhelming, right? When you're a kid, when all of us were kids, things are going to happen that are unpleasant, that are painful, potentially physically painful, emotionally painful, disturbing, whatever it is. Things that you're not ready to deal with and to handle at that age, right?
Trauma.
Yeah, in so many words, trauma. A bad experience that your psyche says, yeah, I don't want to have that happen again. I don't want that to happen again, ever again. And what it does is it creates, inside the psyche, it creates scar tissue, in the same way that if a trauma happens to the body, right, the body says, okay, we can't move there, it hurts, right? We need to freeze it here. So it starts building up scar tissue. It starts, you can have something heal the wrong way because some trauma happens to it. And if you don't fix it right, it's going to break, or it's going to heal in a bad way because the body's trying to heal it. It's trying to stop it from moving or whatever, but then you might lose mobility or something like that. Same thing happens in the psyche. Something really negative or damaging happens to you, the psyche creates scar tissue around it and says, we're not going to look at that. We're going to forget about that. We're not going to think about that again. And it posts basically a sentry at the door. It places a protector at the door, a mental protector that says, when we did X, Y happened. So we can never do X again. We need to do Z or whatever it is. So a lot of us, all of us, have voices in our head that are regulating our behavior or telling us things, whispering in our ears things to basically try and keep us safe. And some of those things are actually really helpful. Like part of becoming a member of society is like bugging and then someone being like, yo, don't do that. And you being like, bet, and not doing it. And you now have their voice in your head, telling you, don't do that. And you have that fear from that moment where they reprimanded you ingrained in your head. And it's reminding you of that fear when you're thinking of doing that thing. And that's what helps you function in society, right? Okay, don't take your crap outside. Don't beat up someone who's innocent, whatever it is. Those are helpful. And there are lots of voices in our heads, lots of protectors in our psyche that are actually not helpful because they were created when we were 3 years old, when our mind was 3 years old and we didn't understand logic, and we came up with a protection mechanism or a soothing mechanism to something that happened to us that is now getting in the way of our flourishing or is causing problems in our current relationship, right? Let's say as a kid, my mom did something, let's say my aunt, let's say someone did something to me that I really didn't like. And I go to my room and I'm crying, I'm having a really negative time, and they come in and they say, why are you mad? Why are you sad? And I say, well, this is how I feel. This is how you made me feel. You did X, Y, Z to me. And they say, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Shut up. I did the right thing. Da 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 da. Right? And they compound on what happened. Right? Then a protector might develop in my head that says, when someone who's hurt you is asking you about how you're feeling, don't give them more so that they can attack you again. Act like everything's good so that they go away and you'll be safe again.
Wow. What the
yeah.
Whoa.
I completely agree.
So,
so then,
no, brother.
But you see it in like everybody's day-to-day life. Like you could see, like, I'm not gonna sit here and I wouldn't say it like that, but you could see like what he's describing. It's like, it's especially for like men. There's stuff that we went through that it's kind of, I wouldn't say frowned upon, but like it's not very welcome to be like talking about your feelings. Like it's just, you just suck it up and deal with it. But it's just an unhealthy way of dealing with stuff. I mean, at some point, I feel like you have to talk through it. You have to work it out. You have to work yourself through it. I mean, not necessarily like go to a therapist, but there's healthy ways you can like talk it out. Like
If
you
you have the
talk
knowledge about
it
it,
out
right?
to yourself. I mean, you don't necessarily have to speak with somebody or anything, but you have to like work through it. Like, and you don't even have to talk about it, I guess. But I mean, that probably helps. But at a certain point, you'll have to work through it. You got to work through it on your own, or however you need to. I mean, if you need to go to a therapist, go to one. I mean, but
Just like the other day.
there's just trauma that, like he said, like you watch, like it's crazy because like I've listened to like so many podcasts, like Sean Ryan talking about these veterans that have PTSD, and all it is just traumatic brain injuries. It's like you said, your psyche, like it's like a bruise, but it won't heal.
It's like a broken rib.
Like memories, the memories, it's
Yeah,
like
it takes forever
it's
to
the
heal.
memories, like it's memories of bruises in your psyche, like traumatic memories, like traumatic events that have happened to you. It's bruises of your psyche, and eventually you have to heal that, or else it's always going to keep affecting you. I had that problem for like a long time, like just angry, like.
So the same situation we had the other day. Remember you come and check on me and thing?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, there's other things that tied outside of it that I was trying to build and not talk about. And it just let go in the moment that like we were going through this spiritual journey of playing stickball, right? Where it's okay to let all these emotions out and act on them. but I'm still trying to balance what emotions I could use that would fuel it, and what emotions weren't going to help me play this game.
Like, I don't even like crying, but sometimes, like, I'll just go off on my own, bro, and just...
Son, I drive.
Son.
I drive like
sometimes
I ain't got
license. Shit I can't deal with
don't.
at, like, precise moments, and I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I just gotta go. Just go drive. I mean, don't sit here and, like, I don't cry all the time. Like, I'm very rarely do it. Like, I let my emotions affect me that bad to where, like, I have to have that release. Like, sometimes that's all you got to do. Yeah. That's the only way you're gonna be able to get through it. Mm-hmm. And other times, like, I can just drive, like he said, just drive and just think about it, internalize it
too. Like, having that space to let these emotions, the outlet that you were discussing, and how we as a people have that available to us. But I think that where we've always had it available, we kind of take it for granted because you never know what you had to what it's gone, right?
Yes.
And also, like, compartmentalizing stuff, like, that's beneficial to a certain point, but once you compartmentalize too much, it starts to become a detriment to yourself.
You run out of drawers sometimes.
For sure. And yeah, I mean,
and it's weird talking about the topic of, like, your psyche and stuff like that, because, like, I have this thing I like to call it, like, it's just like a library within inside my head. Like, sometimes I feel like I can actually, like, walk through there. Like, when I'm dreaming at night, it's crazy. Like, I feel like I have this library I can go into and, like,
dreams are
have my, like sometimes I'll hash out bad memories in my sleep, and I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh fuck, like, it's crazy, stuff like that. They say whenever, like, your relatives, like, you dream about them, like, I know it's your memories, of course, but, like, sometimes it's like you go and have conversations with them, and it's just like the way we believe around here is that when one of your relatives comes and visits you, it's like when you dream about them, it's like they're coming to visit you from a different plane. I've had that happen a couple of times, like waking up in tears, like
yeah.
Like, I had a conversation with my mom, like, a couple years ago. It's been a while, but in the dream, it's just like, I forget what we talked about now, but yeah, like, I woke up and I didn't have no explanation for why I was crying. You know, I'm just like, oh, that's why he was talking to her. Stuff like that. I mean, but yeah, I forget where I was going. I forgot.
I mean, there's just that's just
letting it out.
I think that was just it. Yeah.
It's working through those things too.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just taking the time to work through those things. Cause a lot of people still compartmentalize what you were saying is just kind of put it up in certain areas, in their own libraries, their own form of libraries, and never. They put them up, put a chain around it, put a lock on it, and they never open that book again.
And like the Dark Mother sometimes breaks out. Like, breaks the chains.
That's fucking chest burster and alien, right?
Yeah.
You think the thing is gone, but it's still gestating inside. It's gonna fucking pop out. That's why you gotta recognize what happened.
But getting back into what he was saying about how it'll affect you in your day-to-day life, it can hinder you in certain aspects of, like, your relationships. Like, for me, I just have a hard time of just, like, letting people in. You know, I don't know why. I just always have. Even in my, like, current relationship, like, it's hard.
It's just one of the things you got to work through. You know, like. I'm the same way though.
Anger too, man. Because there's anger too. Like I said, I was an angry kid for, like, a long time. He still is really angry. Like,
some people are better at hiding it for longer periods of time than others.
Then the outbursts are crazy.
And then the outbursts are insane. Because I mean, like, I got to the point where I wouldn't share anything with who I was with at the time. And then when I finally did, fucking backfired. So then I went back further. And then
he's like, no, I ain't doing that shit again.
No, you got me once.
It's fairly recent that me and Corey started to open up to each other about the shit we grew up together with. And starting to have that more bonded brother relationship. Yeah. Because for the longest time, shit happens, right? You just don't talk about it. You internalize it and you just keep it there. But I would say it's fairly recent in the last couple of years that all three of us have really started to open up. Yeah. And talk about shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things maybe I would push back against is like the idea that we need to go alone and just like deal with our stuff alone and then like come back. You know, I think the point you made a point the other day, like one of the things you love about Cherokee culture is like people can leave and then like and deal with whatever they're dealing with, and then when they're ready to be part of the community, return. And I agree with that. That is, I love that ability to reintegrate and that forgiveness and that second chance. You know, and I think one of the things that we're struggling with as a people is that we have places to engage with like the dark father energy together. Like that's like stickball. Like people are like doing hard shit and people are witnessing it and are like tapping into that like energy and being like, yeah, like fuck yeah, like we love this. The women are there, the kids are there, everyone's like celebrating the like warrior, right? And we have moments where we're celebrating the healer or celebrating the, you know, the provider or the light father. Like that's what like church is, or a lot of traditional ceremonies are about celebrating the return of the light or the bounty of the food or whatever it is. And we come together collectively to talk about the good things and how we're grateful for the good things. You know,
like a green corn festival.
Yeah, that would be a good example.
Sounds, yeah, like green corn. But like, where is our temple to the dark mother? You know, where's our temple for like sadness, where we as a people can come together and like mourn collectively? You know, that's something that we have a lot of shame around, I think, just as humans. Like, and that's what causes a lot of the hurt is we don't feel like we can trust people with our sensitive selves. We feel like they're going to take advantage of it because they have maybe in the past, and they use it and they don't honor it and they don't treat it as sacred where it is sacred. And so
I believe that's why our people used to have these mounds, though. Like, I feel like that was why we used to have them, places you could go to do that. You know, that's what they were. They were ceremonial like grounds,
right?
Like with people that were put in there. Like,
yeah.
And I also think another outlet we have as a, you know, as the Eastern Band and the Western Band is the removal ride, the RTR ride.
Right.
Like that's another way of us to go out there and witness the trauma that our people had.
Yes.
Like, went through.
That's definitely something that I would like to traditionally dive more into and understanding, because like, come to think about it, there isn't really like, I mean, even though it is RTR, right? Remember the removal. There's like still somewhat of a celebratory atmosphere around it. You know, it's not like maybe they so with them on the journey. I know that they do actually visit some of those moments and they go in and tap in with it, and they do feel like, you know, they have a space to share those moments together. But when we're meeting them on the back end and at the start of it, it's not the same.
Right.
But like when they share those pictures and everything and they're praying around red clay and they're sitting at red clay and they're really like talking to each other, I know that they feel it there. But when we got to Oklahoma, they weren't really the same.
Right.
It was more of a like, they made it. Congratulations. It was a hard thing, but it wasn't like there's a purpose for this.
Yes.
You know, that's just how I felt personally. And I sat through the entire speech, and then everybody went to go.
Oh, you was out there when they got there, weren't you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was in my interview earlier, and I was they was telling me that like you get to like learn about, you go to do your genealogy and stuff like that, and they work you through everything, and they find out if you had people that, like, if they died in certain spots or if they went there, you get to find that out. Like, they trace it back for you. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's what something I learned today during the interview. Like, they were like, they make it a point to be like, oh, this is where like da 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 da's family, you know, they had relatives that, you know, died here. Like, share that special moment with the people that you are out there with. I mean, it's exciting. Like, I really hope I get selected, you know, because I've been wanting to do it for a while. Then I'm gonna try to get them to do it next year.
Well, I think you're gonna get selected. But when you do, you know, we got the GoPro sitting with you. You know what I'm saying? So, but
yeah, I guess that's one thing. I mean, then there's so many places we could go with regards to healing and healing modalities, and I think that's an ongoing conversation. I'm glad we're like starting it now, but I think it's something we can continue to have over time. And I'll put another thing out there is one of the things that I found to be most helpful for my own healing was, and it was actually the first thing I did, was just to understand first, like, what happened. Like, let me just look at the facts, like, first, right? Like,
before the event that took
right.
place.
Yeah, like what actually has happened in my life, like the whole picture. Because at least growing up for me, the way I was constructing my identity at that time was for um, for what I was doing with my company, so like my job, and like the story I was telling other people about me, so that they would give me money or invest in me, or telling the people I was working with so that we could collaborate. You're cherry picking the relevant moments from your life that are relevant to
like a resume,
what you're trying to do, like a resume,
yeah.
Which I think makes sense within the context. Like in a job interview, right? You're saying, this is why I'm good for the job. I've done XYZ things. You don't need to know all this other shit, right? But that does become a way that your personality starts getting structured, and the things that you think are relevant about your life, or I thought were relevant about my life. And then when I was applying to Stanford, it's like I crafted the person that could get into Stanford, and that starts to become the identity. And then it's like, you go to Stanford, I was class president. It's like the person that could win class president. And so that's how I was thinking about myself. But it left out a ton of who I actually was and experiences that I'd actually had, right? So one of the first things I did, and I think there are probably more simplified ways to do this now, but at the time during COVID, I took a month or so, and I was up in Montana at our family's place.
Flathead.
Yeah, somewhere near there.
Around there,
yeah. And I basically took a pen and paper, and I would do meditation and yoga in the morning, breath work, and then I would sit there for as long as I could for that day, and I would write out literally everything I could remember I had ever experienced in my life, like, and of course, when I was in like middle school, you don't say everything, but I guess I wrote out every important moment that I could remember from my life, like everything. It took me like a month of like 5-6 hours a day, like writing by hand. But when I looked at it at the end, I was like, holy shit, like there's so many experiences I've had in my life that were just not in my conscious mind. Like I basically like saw my subconscious in a way, like saw all these experiences that I'd had, but I'd forgotten about. And it really changed my understanding of who I was. And yeah. And it also became very clear, oh, fuck, that's what I need to heal, right? Like those are the experiences that happened, right? And then you can start to focus on them. But often we've forgotten about them because they hurt. So you're walking around every day, you don't even know that you're bleeding out of your side, in your psyche. You just think, oh yeah, that's just me. That's just my personality. But it's like when you actually look at the timeline, you're like, wait, I didn't always have that. Like that happened because this thing happened. And that's why I'm thinking this. So tracing the history, I think it's the same thing for a culture too. What happened to our people? Why are we in this position now? You have to understand the history. Same way for the psyche. What was my childhood like? What are the moments that were defining in that time that have created me? Then you can go back and start to excavate those, start to go back to those moments and process them with a higher intelligence that you have in hindsight, which actually is helpful in this case. And we could talk about how you do that, and there's plant medicine and all sorts of things.
Okay, that's what I was getting ready to get at. It's like how, as someone that, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that, but
so I guess for someone that's trying to take the first steps into doing that, how would they go
would
about
want to
doing
do
it?
that? Like how? Because like for me, like I think it'd be hard because like I have blocked a lot of my childhood out.
Yeah,
like
I have
So
to.
just taking those
like
first steps.
I've discussed this before. I've
Blocked it out. Same.
I've wanted to like do that spiritual journey. Like I want to try like ayahuasca. Like I've been wanting to do that. Like that's something I think I personally would benefit greatly from. Just to get not get rid of, but to work through the trauma. Because like there's medicines out there, like plant medicines and like holistic ways to do it, to where you can heal your brain.
He's a good resource for that. He has a lot of experience traveling to these places.
Like the whole, like I feel like you have to do the whole ceremony and everything. Like you have to have somebody that knows what they're doing to get. Because I mean, talked about doing DMT too, but I think that's just purely like from like something I would want to try, but like
recreational,
recreational use, just to see what it's like. I mean, but as far as like healing your psyche and your mind, I've been looking at trying to like get into like path to ayahuasca.
But we have the resources here for it. It's available. So
like I think all of us in this room, me, you, and Corey, could definitely benefit from it. I mean, we all have our stuff we have to work through. I mean,
Yeah.
Thoughts on that? Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I just came last week from a summit in Sedona, and pretty much everyone there were either plant medicine healers themselves or had done extensive work with plant medicine healers. It was kind of it's a grouping of people who are all into that. I was there. The work that I've done is I work with the mushroom, the sacred mushroom, and that's been my path over the past few years. And the spirit of the plant spoke to me the first time I took it and said, "We're going to have a relationship. I'm going to help you remember and teach you things. Walk with me."
That right there, it's like what he was just saying right there is like what I was trying to get at is the stuff that would help you to remember it. Because like I have like very few childhood memories I can think of on the top of my head. Like just being able to sit down and be like, oh, like I know some of the stuff I've witnessed and like locked away, but as far as being able to remember like the good stuff, like it's so few and far between because there was so much bad that I had to block out as a kid. Like, even with my mom and dad, whenever they were together, there's still a lot of bad stuff there too. And then her second marriage, way worse. So like I've talked about it before. Like I have like few memories of like whenever I was a kid with them, and then like from like 10 to when she died, like that's probably like one of the last few memories.
We have to, like I said, man, it's just taking those initial steps, right? We've always talked about this, and this plays into every aspect. It's just we can sit here and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Or we can take those first initial steps into doing something. And it's always taking that first one or that second one that's the hardest. But once you do that, I feel like it's easier to take the third, fourth, and fifth. And then you just kind of get into this momentum and keep taking steps.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I think it's helpful to have a guide, have people who work with the medicine, who like really know the medicine, who are in touch with the spirit of the medicine or of the plant, because it has its own intelligence. And different plant medicines have different personalities, and they take you to different places. And ayahuasca, for example, I wouldn't recommend doing it anywhere outside of the Amazon jungle because it's a medicine from that place, and there are cultures there that have done it in that way. It's it's kind of like someone wearing like a war bonnet, like when they're not native. It's like it looks cool for sure, but you're missing the point of the thing. And the Shipibo people and
they say it's like a female spirit.
Yeah, they call it grandmother ayahuasca for sure.
Really?
Yeah, that's how she usually presents herself that way. From what I've
it's like I forget the guy I listened to. His experience was like it's like he become part of the jungle.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like he become part of the jungle, and he was like seeing it through. Like it helped him work through all his stuff, but like the way he was describing it was like he was like a jaguar in the jungle, and he was like living in that jaguar's life at that exact moment. It's kind of crazy to listen to his experience with it. And he said he'd come back too.
Yeah, ayahuasca is like I've never taken it because the mushroom has told me to stay with it until we're through. And so I have that relationship. And so when people are going that way, I can be helpful because I know that spirit well and how its medicine works. But ayahuasca is from and psychedelic mushrooms grow on every continent. They grow everywhere. But ayahuasca only grows in the Amazon. It's a mix of a vine and a leaf that's prepared in a traditional way. And the vine on its own or the leaf on its own won't do anything. It's the combination of the two. Out of 150,000 plants in the Amazon is 150,000 unique plants. And it was old shamans who were guided through a snuff, a tobacco snuff. They were using that before they found ayahuasca a long time ago. And I think the people were sick, and one of the shamans went and took the snuff to ask for guidance, and it told them, use this vine, use this leaf, mix it together. And when they did that, they got ayahuasca. And ayahuasca has guided certain tribes towards even new medicines, like the frog medicine combo was found by a shaman on ayahuasca. Grandmother ayahuasca told him to do the procedure with the frog to create other medicines. So medicines lead to other medicines, but they have lineage, and they're from a place, and they have the medicine of that place. And so for ayahuasca, I would say go to Peru or Costa Rica or the places where it was practiced and go with the shamans there, for it to actually give you the right medicine. Right. It will be in that place.
It's crazy how some of these plants have like their certain spiritual personalities, like how you were describing.
Oh yeah, they do. I mean, yeah, I mean plants have life in them, right? They're alive, so they have a personality. And once you enter into the subtler realms of being, this is the middle world. This is a very dense realm of being, physical laws and all this sort of stuff. But if your vibration increases, you can sometimes feel it. Maybe if you're incredibly activated, like if
you travel outside of the physical realm, to that spiritual realm.
It's the realm you're in when you're dreaming too. That's the same realm. When you're dreaming, you're just not also conscious of the body. But the psychedelics are taking you into the same place you're going when you're dreaming, which are the higher dimensions of the world. And there you can talk to the spirits of the plants because they are in, they're in their spirit form. So you can actually understand their medicine and their wisdom. And the type of plant it is going to give you different medicine. Like psychedelics, mushrooms are decomposers. Mushrooms are connectors. Mushrooms are actually just the fruits of a mycelial network, which are basically this tendril network. And they connect trees to other trees. They connect plants to other plants. And they decompose things. And so the medicine, in the same way I always say everything is fractal, everything is symmetric at different scales. The medicine of the mushroom is a decomposing medicine and a connecting medicine in the way that it connects your brain, the parts of your brain that aren't normally talking to each other, the memories that are lost and left behind. It reaches out its tendrils to those and starts bringing them back into awareness and starts decomposing the scar tissue around them and starts breaking them open.
Shit.
That's yeah.
Because I was getting ready to like finish his sentence for him. Like that's what it's for. Like it's in there to decompose all your bad trauma you have. Like,
yeah. To turn it
crazy,
over
chat.
into new growth.
From the physical side of it to how it actually impacts you, of decomposing, breaking down your thoughts and things that happen in your life. Wow, this is
it's
deep.
crazy.
Yeah.
Because like I just seen a post the other day like about Chernobyl. Like it happened, 40 years ago, but it's like Chernobyl is like all that radiation over there, but there's like a black fungus growing that's essentially like a mushroom, but it's over there just decomposing the radiation. Like it's eating it to allow that area to heal.
Yeah,
because like that's crazy.
That's
that shit crazy.
Yeah,
that shit crazy.
Well, it's just like Uncle Andy said, man. It's just medicine is all around us. Like the earth has gave us everything that we need.
Yeah.
We just gotta go find it. There's a medicine for every sickness out there. There's a plant for every sickness out there.
Yeah,
we just gotta go find it. So
most all medicine, like modern medicines that we take, are active ingredient isolates of Amazonian plants.
That's crazy.
Like most things that like has some crazy ass name on it, like paramyxoxenthanol, is actually just like the active ingredient in like a yarrow flower.
People
that like some pharma company took. It's not like they made something new. It's very hard to make.
It's just there.
Something new. It's there. They isolated it, and they're mass producing it, or they're making a synthetic version of it. But the indigenous medicines, they're just like ramping up they're isolating it and ramping up the potency, which has its own problems because plants have other chemicals in them that help.
Right.
It's crazy to think about it, but like we're at risk of losing all that knowledge through there. All that Amazonian,
even with like deforestation and
it was like another somebody was talking about it, but it was like the shamans that are teaching that medicine out there, like they don't have nobody else to pass it down to. Like they might not have learned everything they could from the person that knew it before them that knew more, and it's progressively
the transfer of knowledge
is not transferring as much as it should. It's like there's probably stuff that they have forgot that could cure stuff now that you just never get back because there's nobody there to pass it down to. Same thing with like around here. I'm sure there was stuff that a lot of these old medicine men knew that it's not here no more.
It's just gone. And where we didn't record stuff, like writing down stuff, it's just gone.
Yeah. gone from this world.
Yeah,
but
this world.
You could probably find it eventually.
You could maybe go up and ask them and talk to them.
That's crazy.
I've got a lot of old medicine from old teachers in the dream realm, and then you do it in real life and it works. Like, all right.
You have a lot of teachers, you said?
Yeah, when working with the mushroom, one of the main things for me that's happened is I've remembered, and this is obviously different people have different beliefs how things work. For me, through my experiences with the mushroom, it seems to me that reincarnation is a thing that's going on, and there are places my spirit has been before this guy, and I've encountered some of those guys, and they've taught me some things that I used to know, old medicines that I practice now and work. And if you want to just say that was a dream, those aren't your actual past lives. Those are just guys that are visiting you in a dream. Okay, but I'm totally fine with that. But it's intelligence, and it definitely seemed like something that wasn't me, and definitely seemed like, it was definitely new information to me when I was told it, and when I practiced it, it worked. So however you want to think of that as being a hallucination, or if you want to think of it as being a part of my own being that's synthesizing that, that's fine. To me, it seems most accurate to say it was a spiritual ancestor that's helping me remember that.
To the outside people, that's probably how they would see it. It's, oh, you were just hallucinating. But somebody that's actually practiced it, having that certain understanding and knowledge about what you just went through, like it's not that to you. It's something you've actually witnessed.
Yeah, because there's stuff in those experiences that you couldn't know that because they weren't recorded. Like in this moment now, we don't notice it because we're in our own heads, but our thoughts have trajectories and associations with other thoughts. What I mean by that is when I say "awoye," you guys have more associations with that word than I do. To me, it's like when I visited my friend Kaizek, the Cherokee guys were saying "awoye." For you, it's like something deeper. It's connected to other images, other sounds, other moments in your life.
Fucking whoa, yeah.
But let's get back to what you were saying. It's like everything's on a frequency, though. We're essentially frequencies. Like each one of us is on our own frequency, but we're all connected. Everything is connected. If you think about it, everything operates on a frequency. Like
Globalization.
The water,
is crazy.
You don't think it has its own frequency, but the bottle that it's in has its own frequency. Like everything is on its own wavelength.
Even to the smallest scale of atoms is shaking around.
It's all it is. It's and then Terrence Howard was saying something about it too. Like if you should check out his about frequencies and stuff like that.
That's what's happening when you're taking plant medicine. I found is your vibration is going way up, so you can hear the signals that are always there, but it's just like on a radio station. Like you're just not tuned into it. And then you tune into it, you're like, oh shit, like there's this other stuff happening up here, but I was just bugging. I was in a low vibrational state thinking about, the stuff I had to do today or just being pissed at something, whatever. I was putting my attention on physical things and putting it in the world. So how could I hear that very quiet, subtle thing? Same reason why, maybe the Cherokee people aren't talking all the time because they're tapping into something collective. It's similar when you're going up into the spiritual realms. That's why it's helpful to fast. That's why fasting can get you into that state, right? Because the body's not digesting anything. No energy is being put down here. It's all open for the system, right? And a lot of these practices are trying to get the body into a receptive and open state where you can start to hear the subtler things. The plant medicines are just a really intense, heavy chemical way to induce that state in the body.
Force that, yeah.
But you can do it through breath work. And I just had an experience, and I was at this retreat that I was at last week. We did a whole hour-long breathwork ceremony, and I do a lot of breathwork. I've done a lot of trauma release stuff, and I've done a lot of screaming and working through energies in my bodies and understanding who everyone is inside and making nice with them and bringing them home and putting in a healthier protector than the one I had when I was 5 years old. I've done that work as my job for the past few years, so I didn't need to cry during this breathwork ceremony because my nervous system was already feeling good. But for a lot of people who this was one of their first experiences, people are shaking and energy's moving through their body, or they're screaming, or they're having visions and stuff like that. And that's just literally with the breath for an hour and some music and a good facilitator. So there are methods for people who are afraid of plant medicines as well to start to get there. And darkness retreat is one of the big ones that people have been getting into. Darkness retreat is usually, it starts around 3 days, but it can go up to 7 days and can go really as long as you want. You're literally just in a room in complete darkness for days. And what most people that I've talked to about it who have done it, who are also intense psychedelic plant medicine workers, say that it's more powerful than any psychedelic they've ever taken. The reason why is because they say you retain complete lucidity because you're not on anything. Because one of the things that it happens with plant medicines is there's also body load that's happening. Like your spirit is getting opened up into these like bigger states, and also your body is usually being poisoned, like in a medicinal way. But like you're throwing up, or you're shitting yourself, or you're hyperventilating, or you're sweating. Like combo. The frog medicine, like homies are, it's coming out of both ends. Ayahuasca's coming out of both ends. In shrooms, on a high dose, proper dose, fasted, you're going to be feeling really sick to your stomach. And the weakness of the body is what allows the ego to be surpassed and healing to be done. Because you're stopping the ego, or the ego stops healing because it's like, wait, I'd have to change. I'd have to have a new personality if I actually forgave him, or I'd have a new personality if I wasn't mad about this. Right? So the ego's trying to stay in control. So the weakening of your body that happens from the plant medicine, it can't fight it, and the healing has to happen. It bursts through the dam. That's what the medicine of the sickness is, which is why I'm against people trying to isolate the active compounds of plant medicines and put them into pills that don't have body load, because the fucking medicine is in the body load of the toxins of the plants.
Right.
And it can be hard to know what the fuck is going on when you're in that state, and it can be hard to do logical healing work, which often doesn't need to happen. Often you just need to remember what it is that you're forgetting, or what it is affected you, so that you can then work with it after the ceremony and know that it could be fixed because you had a moment of it being fixed in the ceremony. But now you have to do the integration work. With the darkness retreat, the entire time you're completely lucid because you're not on anything. So people have told me that it's a very powerful experience for them because they have their full mental capacity there, and they're having profound visionary things happen, and allowing a lot of things to come up. So darkness retreat, breath work, plant medicine, meditation, myofascial body release, because trauma gets stored in the body. So sometimes when people start doing intensive myofascial release, you can have trauma release from that.
What is that?
Myofascial. If you ever like cut open a deer or something, you know how there's the skin, and then there's like a white film that like holds the organs together and the body together. Yeah, like that gets like brittle in us in certain places. Like that's what like yoga and stretching and stuff helps with, is like you can kind of wake up and warm up the fascia and keep it fluid so that your flexibility.
It reminds me of the little like stone people use on their face.
Yeah, that's what that's doing.
What's it called?
The gua sha.
Yeah.
Gua sha?
Yeah, it's a myofascial thing.
But getting back to what you was talking about on the darkness retreat, like I've looked at these, like there's not, I don't know what it's called, but they're like these pods you can go to.
Yeah.
And like you're sitting in
sensory
water.
deprivation.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like a mini
I
darkness
wanted
retreat.
to do that so bad, just to like be able to experience like stuff like that.
Definitely.
But also, what was I getting ready to say? A lot of people that I've listened to that have tried these, like went on these medicinal journeys like you're talking about, before they can actually heal, they have to have that ego death. Like you have to kill your ego, because like you just said, it won't allow you to heal. It'll just allow you to change.
Well, it's there to protect you.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
And that's just,
But I've listened to like a lot of people that have
you.
went on these like ayahuasca journeys and like went to the places to do them, that they first had to kill their ego before they could work through what was bothering them, what was hurting them, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's deep.
Yeah. I mean,
I definitely know I need to kill that motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. I was about to say.
We do have to be mindful of the time. Our grandmother got dinner ready for us. But we could wrap it up in the next couple minutes.
Cool.
You finish your thought on that.
Yeah.
Because I know this can keep going.
I got too deep into it. I could stay here for another 3 hours.
This is like definitely one of those topics that need to be discussed. We need to stop shying away from things like this discussion, right? That's the only way we're going to see any growth.
Right.
I know I can speak pretty comfortably on it that, like, we as a Cherokee people are pretty quick to retain a lot of stuff along with being quiet, and like there's a time to like be loud and be the animal and be a warrior, and then there's those times that we need to just like, just kind of shut it off. But we are quick to do that with a lot of other things. You kind of get it confused where we need to attack those situations or those thoughts that we have to grow and be a part and be one with everybody else. Just like you were saying earlier, I don't think we really have any of those spaces to be the Dark Mother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dark Mother. And just to mourn and be, cope with those emotions or those traumas that we've experienced.
Yes.
From the historical point and from a more presently past point of our lives.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That's something that definitely I feel like we as a people could benefit from more, that I know that they probably handled a lot better, as far as our ancestors.
Yeah. Well, like genetic trauma too. Like, you don't understand, like, genetic trauma is a real thing. Like, it's stuff that's genetically locked in your DNA. And it's trauma that way too.
We were driving through Birdtown and I was like, yeah, like they tell us to be quiet in the woods. Like when you're out there, don't be like leaving traces. He was like, well, maybe that's from the removal and having to be quiet because your enemies are out there searching for you. And it's just through those generations, I might have not known the reason, but I still practice it of just learning from the people above you. But any last thoughts for the podcast that you want the viewers to know about yourself or anything?
Yeah, I mean, if you're liking the stuff that I'm saying or thinking about or working on, you can come check me out on my YouTube channel. Hopefully going to be posting more stuff there soon. Pick my podcast back up, having more conversations around this. And I also have a wiki that has some of the concepts that I work with. I talk about the archetypes on there. I talk about the various intelligences, talk about some concepts that I've come up with. So that's just wiki.ancestor.earth.
And we'll just plaster those on top of our faces. So.
Descriptions in the descriptions as well.
Yeah.
So you guys say Instagram, wiki, or whatever.
Instagram is Ari Nazem, just my name, ARINAZEM. And
this is Ari.
Yeah, that's me.
Ari.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
for having me.
All right. Any thoughts, comments, concerns? Jamie? Anybody?
See you later, chat.
All right, man. Appreciate you guys tuning in for another Octane Underground podcast. Y'all already know what it is, man. Fuck with us.
Моей головы соседи на весь пух и прах. Все с одного ребра и одна сатана. А в глаза бела пелена. До сорта пена бела брызжет, кипит.